now tuned in to the Cold Hard Truth, Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips@CaymanMarlRoad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands. Good morning. Good morning, Cayman. It is a beautiful Monday right here in the Cayman Islands. What a wonderful song. Does it not give you goosebumps every time you hear our national song? I cannot forget. It is amazing. And, yesterday we were talking about the fact that awards have been given and accolades have been given to all sorts of people. Do you know that the talented woman who sang our national song has yet to be made a national hero right here in the Cayman Islands? How about that? It's amazing how the standards of what is going to be recognized has changed over the years. So we've got a full show for you guys this morning. I know you're here for it for part 2 of the divorce saga. We will be having the beautiful Miss Lorna joining us here shortly. And I want to say good morning to Brandon. Good morning to Lorna, who agrees with us that it is indeed a beautiful day. Good morning, Andrea. Good to see all of you here. The lovely Melita is here for it. Hey, Jake, what's up? How you doing? By the way, I got some new, I've got some new sounds, special effects for my studio. So I'll be playing ones like this. Listen up.
How you doing?
How you doing? We got it. No sound, no video. Okay, Jake, can you hear me? You should be able to hear me, and you'll see me back in a second. The lovely Beulah Walton has joined us. Beulah, I saw it was your brother's birthday today. Edwin, tell him I said happy birthday from the crew here at Cayman Mall Road. Miss Corrine, how was your weekend? Ronika and Barbara are all tuned in. We are wonderful, Barbara. Thank you so much for asking. In fact, why didn't you guys warn me about the perils of marrying a country boy from Jamaica? Because now I've got a snake in my house this morning. Seriously, a snake of all things. Yes. So the baby is super excited that when she comes home from school, that snake is still going to be here. And I guess it will be because I'm not going to be touching it. So it's in the fish bowl for now. You know, she did say that she wanted a fish over the weekend. And I'm thinking, why couldn't we have just stuck with the fish? Why do we now have a snake this morning? But like I said, that's what happens when you marry a country boy. They bring all sorts of things in the house. We've had fish, crabs, snakes, you name it, it's been inside the house. So good morning, Karen, Debbie, Doreen, Kathy is here for it. Thank you so much. Marsha Gay, Michelle, thank you, lovely people. And Cece, the beautiful Cece, is here for the tea. So we have a lot to delve into this morning. I know that on Friday's show, we essentially ran out of time. We went into overtime and we still ran out of time. Oh gosh, I got lost in the house. Girl, don't even put your mouth on me, Karen. We will not be having any lost snakes in this house for long, because trust me, it's not going to take two and a half days or 21 days. 2.5 days. I hope that meant. It's not going to take 2.5 days for that snake to be dead, because I'm going to call the exterminator. Now, we all know that snakes are harmless here in the Cayman Islands, but still, ugh, they just make my skin crawl. But my daughter is so excited to have a snake pet for a couple days. We try to teach her that you cannot keep snakes for long, or any animal for long, in captivity, that they're meant to be on the outside. So she always cries when we have to let it go, and we have to tell it, listen, we have to tell her it has to go back to its family. What if someone kept you away from your family, you know? Yes, Evelyn, I'm feeling you. Yes, my dear, we talked about that yesterday, Morna. We're not going to discuss it this morning because it really gets under my skin like a snake as to why. I don't even know why we did this award ceremony right now. Like I said, we are at the beginning, believe it or not, of COVID. We have a long haul to go. We don't know how this story is going to end for us. So why are we rewarding people already is the first question. So I think the timing is wrong. I also think that it is wrong to but to reward civil servants for doing their jobs, which they get paid handsomely to do. You know, yes, that's your job. And if you're making in excess of $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 or $8,000 a month, excuse me if I actually expect you to do your job exceedingly well. So in addition to the accolades leaving out certain people, I think there are other questions about it. And now it's open Pandora's box where everybody wants an award. And we have, you know, the supporters of the premier claiming that he should be knighted. Jesus Christ. Hold on. Let me find an appropriate button here. Can you guys hear my jackass button? Yep, that's what I'm thinking. Kayla, joining us from Jamrock. What's up, Kayla? Thank you so much for tuning in. So before the lovely Lorna joins us this morning, let's backtrack a little bit into what has transpired, because I know most of you are here for that conversation. So as you recall, Ricardo, oh gosh, let me get his full name because it's a long, long name. Ricardo Watts Gregory. I think she knows him by Gregory, but he's got like 4 names. So let me get the full name. So it is Mr. Ricardo. Hold on here, folks. There he is. His name is Gregory Anthony Ricardo Watts. And he was trying recently to get his marriage annulled on the basis of fraud. So in case you missed it, CMR did the story on this. We actually contacted him before we did the story. And he was not that interested, actually, in joining us, because he said something like, it's none of her business. So we said, okay, all right, no problem. There you go. That was Mr. Ricardo. Big up yourself. Big up yourself. So, you know, we give people the opportunity to comment, but obviously we cannot force them to comment. So if they do not wish to comment, then so be it. Doesn't stop the story, however. And yes, he decided he didn't want to comment. We ran the story. And then he commented on his own platform. So I'm going to talk about that here in a second. But Mr. Ricardo actually has a radio station called Glory FM. You guys can go check him out if you're interested. And so on Glory FM, he had he actually live streamed his own page, and he had lots to say. And he was calling my name and saying the most about me, which you guys know I don't really care what Mr. Ricardo has to say, Mr. Gregory. But he had a lot to say about, you know, how I'm into ruining people's names and this and that. Well, you know, there is a basic premise in law that you have to have a name first that can be ruined before somebody can ruin it. So I guess Mr. Ricardo Gregory probably missed that point. But nonetheless, he goes on and on and on about his ex-wife and blah, blah, blah. Now, the irony of it all is Mr. Ricardo was making a lot of assumptions about the article that simply wasn't true. So his assumption was that his ex-wife actually assisted us with the writing of the article, and she had not. We had not spoken to her at that point, none at all. You know, when you make assumptions, what happens? Yep. That's my jackass button, folks. You make a jackass out of yourself. Good morning, Sherry. Hi, Sophia. So, nonetheless, he went on and on, accusing the ex-wife of all sorts of stuff. Eventually, we did make contact with the ex-wife, and she was like, you know, I'm so done with this man. He's a joker. I'm just wanting to move on with my life. I would love to be able to move on with my life. However, I can't sign a petition, annulment petition that is accusing me of fraud. And in a matter of principle, I quite understand the point of not signing that. So anyway, he claimed that she had tricked him and that he was under the assumption that he would be able to, or she would be able to get a police clearance certificate. Hey, big up, Kay, all the way from Aruba, the beautiful island of Aruba. Thank you so much for tuning in. We got some Caribbean people on the lock today. Thank you guys very much for making this your morning show that you're listening to. So yes, so he did the most in this petition, and Miss Lorna started to share some of her story. And I gotta tell you, when she started to share her story, I was flabbergasted. Like every word was so incredibly shocking. I was just like, what the hell? Honestly, I could not believe half of what I was hearing. Not even half. 75% of what I was hearing was jaw-dropping. I was just like, oh. Anyway, she shared her story. Then Mr. Ricardo wouldn't stop. He kept going on with his antics. And I said, listen, Lorna, you know, he sent another divorce petition this time, claiming all sorts of stuff. He wants to claim, oh, she's a lesbian. We're going to look at the divorce petition this morning to see exactly what Mr. Watts is claiming, Mr. Gregory, but he has had a lot to say about her. And when you consider the fact that literally they had one visit in Jamaica after they were married, where he showed up for the wedding and they had a couple days together. I guess it was about a week. Then they had, she was supposed to come down for a month to Cayman. That lasted, I think, a week. We'll confirm with her when she comes on this morning. Because it only lasted a week because Mr. Gregory treated her so horribly on her visit here that she had to leave in a hurry. Not only did she have to leave in a hurry, but she actually had to go into an emergency housing situation where she had to live with somebody else, practically total strangers to her, who she did not know, sleeping on, the sofa or the floor or wherever they could make accommodations for her. I cannot imagine exactly how this worked, honestly. On the one hand, if somebody visits you and you don't get along and you have an argument, this is your new wife, you think to yourself, you know what, I'm going to be the bigger person here since they are visiting, quote unquote, my country. Now, a lot of people are like, where is this man from? I've had a lot of people asking me that question. And Gregory is originally from Jamaica, but as far as I know, he now has status and he has been in the Cayman Islands for a number of years. This is his fourth divorce, soon to be divorce. And he seems to think that there's nothing wrong with him. He blames the women for every single divorce. I am willing to put $100 on this, but if you go back and look at every single one of his petitions, you will see that the fault is always the woman. It's always the woman who's doing something to him that causes the divorce. So it's quite an interesting situation. And I don't know really what to say about that, except that Mr. Watts really needs to get it together. So here's what I know. He contacted us over the weekend and said he had changed his mind about coming on the show. This was after he did his own show. I think it was on Saturday, because a few people were sending me the link where he'd done his own show. Now, when he did his own show on Saturday, he had all of 8 people tuned into the show. So I guess he didn't have enough of an audience. So now he wants to tell me, oh, I've changed my mind. I want to come on your show. And this is what Mr. Watts had to say. Just give me 1 second here. I'm going to pull it up so I can be as accurate as possible. So he did WhatsApp me, not WhatsApp, sorry, Messenger, Facebook Messenger. And he said the following. Computer's a little bit slow this morning. All right, so here we go. Mr. Watts said on Saturday, he says, good morning. He said, Sandra, good morning. I changed my mind. After your interview with Natasha on Monday, so apparently he calls Miss Lorna Natasha, I would like to give my side of the story. Okay, so I said, good morning. He said, oh yeah, sorry, didn't realize that you'd responded. After all those lies and lambasting yesterday, I was advised to accept your invitation to come on and speak, not my truth, but the truth. I don't know who would have been advising him. However, I explained to him that the invitation was actually closed because we don't intend to make this. I mean, I know that Mr. Watts has a lot of stuff. We could do a month-long series on him, but this really isn't the point of the show. In my mind, Mr. Watts, via the divorce petition, which we're going to go through in detail this morning, and this is what I explained to him, had an ample opportunity to respond and to give what he is saying transpired. So we will see in short order exactly what Mr. Watts has said has transpired. We will continue to hear the rest of Lorna's story and then give her an opportunity to respond, because that was the whole idea here, is she had no voice in this platform. People were commenting on social media after the original story and making all sorts of commentary about her when they know nothing about her. So she simply wanted the opportunity to put forward her position. So he goes on to say that he wants to invite me on his program. And he says, that's interesting. I ignored the first post, but then you went further and invited my wife live. Okay. But now it's closed to me because of my petition. He doesn't quite get the point, but all right. My wife opened up a can of lies, he claims, and I have proof to the contrary. You said you're about the cold hard truth, but are you? Big question is, why did you go for me about my private divorce and then keep following it by going live with my wife with a 2-part series to boot, but suddenly you do not want me to respond to these allegations? My petition has only the bare essentials, he claims. And how did you get hold of my petition and the proceeding is still ongoing? Who initiated this witch hunt? Well, Mr. Gregory Anthony Ricardo Watt, this is hardly a witch hunt. The petition, I'm sure you know, the first petition and the judgment in that would have been, not the petition itself, but the judgment would have been a matter of a public document. And in fact, all of you can go to the court website yourselves and have a look at it. Now, when you file a petition, the petition is also a public document because anyone can sit down and do a court search for the petition. And in fact, I'm going to prove that to you this morning because it seems like Mr. Watts is woefully ill-informed and ignorant, and he just doesn't know how any of this works. You know, when you go to court, you don't get to file court documents and then hide behind those court documents. In fact, there are a lot of court proceedings that are entirely open to the public for people to come and have a look at what is happening. Now, in this case, Miss Lorna has had enough of this man. So she has decided that despite what she says are ongoing lies in his current divorce petition, so that she does not draw this out, waste money, because listen, they both want the same thing at the end of the day, right? So they both want a divorce. Her issue and a matter of principle is that he is filing for a divorce with affidavits attached that are nothing but a bunch of lies. And so she was not keen to sign those documents. However, she has been informed that, you know what, it's going to really be a waste of time for you to try to pursue this matter, because what are you going to do? All you can do is file an affidavit saying what? He's lying, but I still want my divorce. And as we said before, the divorce system in the Cayman Islands remains a fault-based system, which really forces people to point fingers at each other in order to be able to get the divorce. So, like most pieces of lawsuits, you know, these things are available by way of a search. People can look them up. Sometimes they're available online. So for example, if I go online right now and I search one of the databases that we use in order to look up court information, I can see here that if I type in, what's his name? Gregory Watts. Let's see here. Gregory Anthony Ricardo Watt. There's a number of lawsuits that come up. One is Scotiabank. So it was him suing Scotiabank back in November 2017. There's a writ of summons in relation to that. He also filed documents, Gregory Watt versus Scotiabank and Trust Cayman, December of 2017. And then there was Scotiabank suing him when they were trying to, I think, take his home, starting with September of 2013 and then again in November of 2016. So there are a number of petitions here on this website with Mr. Watt's name. And, you know, we're well familiar with his legal troubles with Scotiabank and kind of how that ended, unfortunately for him. They ended up taking his home after a very long battle. So Miss Lorna has the opportunity here for her to have a voice. I think a lot of you thus far have found her story to be very interesting. And in fact, so much so that now we have 235 of you tuned back in to this morning's show. You know, Mr. Watt has his own platform. So the first podcast he did on Saturday, apparently he deleted it. I do not know why. And then he did another one yesterday as well that was quite lengthy. And I didn't get to listen to all of it. But if we get an opportunity, we might go through some of it to hear what he's saying. And then in addition to that, you're not going to believe who he has gotten to defend him. I mean, when I heard this yesterday, my jaw dropped. This is where I need to pull out my air horn now. Seriously, folks, this is next level crazy. But you guys know our friend Lavelle Marriott? You know, the one who stands out on the street with the car parts, the chair, the rocks, the signs, holding up traffic. The lady who claims that Dr. Lookloyd tried to kill her because he has told her that she has mental health issues that she needs to get some help for. That same person has done a very lengthy voice note where she is saying that Miss Lorna needs to submit herself to her husband. And this is her punishment for not doing so. And until she does that, apparently, you know, this will not go away. I don't even know how lengthy this audio thing. It's 26 minutes and 56 seconds, folks. That Lavelle, which we know how she loves nothing more than an audience. So Lavelle was able to go on and on and on. Woo! Can I get a hallelujah in the house? Yes, praise the Lord, because we're going to need him up in here today. So Lavelle has joined the mix. Yes, Andrea, Lavelle has joined the mix. Let's listen to a quick snippet of what Lavelle had to say. Andrea, Rosa, Nuriana, all of you are like, Lord have mercy, birds of a feather. And we know it, we know it. Petrula, I think it's too long, but we'll play bits and pieces of it so that you can get an idea of, you know, what she has to say. Now, listen to me. If you have to get someone to defend you, normally you try to get someone to defend you that has a little bit of sense. You know what I'm saying? And you get someone to defend you who, when people hear them talking, they have some impact on the people that are listening. You understand what I'm saying, Rosa? Let's hit it. Let's hit that hallelujah button again. Because this ain't it. Lavelle is not the kind of person that you want to defend you in any way, shape, or form. Okay? Because let's just say that she has some issues of herself that she needs to first take care of. Anyway, let's have a quick listen. I know you guys are anxious to get into the details of this. So just a couple minutes though, because we ain't got time for Lavelle, but here we go.
Happy Sunday to you guys. How are you today? This is Lavelle Marriott. Oh my goodness. Listen, I heard the good news that the judge, whoever, I don't know, listen, judge refused to grant ministers of the gospel divorce. Come here. Listen to me. I say, I want to know which judge this is. I will be at the courthouse Monday morning, bright and early, because I need to know which judge decide that, listen, you're not getting any divorce up inside here. Listen, I want to kiss your foot. I would love to kiss the feet of that judge. May God bless you mightily for being such an obedient servant of Almighty God. Yes? Listen, I had the opportunity of...
All right, so here we are, folks, 53 minutes, 53 seconds in. And already Miss Lavelle is talking pure nonsense, okay? Because she's saying that the judge did not grant Miss Lorna the divorce when it wasn't even Miss Lorna that had applied for the divorce. So poor Lavelle does not have a fundamental understanding even of what is transpiring here. In fact, it is the opposite. The friend that she's now trying to defend, which she says, she's known him for a long time. She knows his character, which is shocking. He is the one whose petition was denied on the basis that his claims of fraud were not fraud. That's what the judge said. What you are claiming that amounts to fraud does not amount to fraud. So he relies on all sorts of assertions in the initial petition, and the judge said, no, sir, you will not be getting a divorce on this basis. So we see that Mr. Johan is tuned in and he's not happy with the topic. Johan, Rooster is right over on the next feed. Help yourself over there, my friend. I understand that they're talking about what we discussed yesterday. Jump in on that conversation. So as you guys know, CMR is not just about politics every single day of our lives. Good Lord knows that we would die if that's all we had to talk about. These are issues, believe it or not, real live issues, what women go through in relationships, what men go through in relationships, and when they end very, very prematurely, and like this one, they do cause a lot of social issues that become a question or a point of interest to people in the community. So today's Medical Monday. I'm just having a look at Cayman Crosstalk. Johan, they've got 19 people watching that, my friend. Jump over there to make it number 20. And then rejoin us tomorrow, because tomorrow we'll be talking about something more up your alley in terms of politics. All right, let's hear a little bit more about what Lavelle has to say.
A few days ago to really sat down and listen to the bride. Yes, Miss Prophetess spoke so eloquently about her husband dirty laundry. Listen to me. Let me all tell you something. You need to stop playing with God. You understand me? You all need to stop playing with God, walking around, calling yourself prophetess and ministers of the gospel. I want Jesus Christ slap you down so cold. Listen, how dare you go publicly and disgrace yourself in such a manner and consider yourself to be a woman? How dare you disgrace yourself and uncover your husband in such a way that you claim that God gave you? Listen to me, woman. Listen to me, woman. Please listen to me, woman, this morning. Listen to me this morning. I had the opportunity. Listen to me. I sat down and I listened to this thing to the end. I had so much to do, and I put everything aside and I said, let me listen to this. Let me hear this out, because I know the young man. I know this young man for over 20 years. We work. He was my former co-worker and was a very good friend. Sat at my table and eat with my family. This is somebody that I know very well. No, I am not talking about somebody that is flawless, because none of us is. None of us are flawless. You understand? So he is by no means a flawless man, but he is a sincere man that is ready to embrace a woman that is ready to submit to God, to press him through and pray a prayer of deliverance for him. Yes. So now God pick up Miss Prophetess. Listen to me. Listen, from Genesis to Revelation in this Bible, the only person God called a prophetess is Jezebel.
Lord have mercy, folks. I can't take no more. No. Lavelle. You can't get in my head this morning. She might as well be out blocking traffic again. Pure nonsense. Miss Lorna has said she's never called herself a prophetess, so I don't know how this argument goes. But anyway, hallelujah again. What can I say? This is a hot mess. So Mr. Ricardo did his own show and he had the most to say. And he now wants to make this a back and forth, which that isn't the point of this program. This is only a continuation because Miss Lorna had so much to say that she did not actually get to finish on Friday. What I would like to say about the whole mix up with the church, these are church folks having a go at it. And I guess church folks are some of the biggest sinners in the world sometimes. And just because you go to church doesn't mean that you're without your own issues, you're without, a stain on your life, and you're probably continuing to struggle with, your Christianity and being Christ-like. But I can tell you from personal experience that sometimes in church, Those are some of the biggest devils. They need to step out. Let me get a hallelujah up in here again. They need to step out of church, right? They need to take 2 feet out and stop giving the church a bad name. So yes, Rosa, after this, he'd be looking for wife number 5. Now, one of the curious things that I had to ask Miss Lorna over the weekend, we're going to bring her into the conversation here now, is why does she think that Ricardo actually, Gregory, whatever name we're going to call him, actually targeted her? Why did he even want a wife? You would think after 3 previous failed relationships, one lasted, I think, less than a year, if I recall correctly. Why bother? Like at some point, you got to realize that if you keep jumping into marriage, and when you're in marriage number 4, you got to admit that the only conclusion that people can come to is you're jumping into these situations a little bit too quick. Just like Miss Lorna, after just knowing her for a few months, all of a sudden he wants to get married to someone that he doesn't really know. And so, I have to wonder why. I know the church folks, and they don't want to be having sex outside of church. Although after Friday's revelation, we have all concluded that what? Test the goods beforehand. Because if you don't, you might run into a problem where you realize that the good's not even working to be good. So, there comes a point in time when you just want to say, listen, I'm going to have to pray about this for forgiveness after the fact. And hopefully the Lord will understand. I'm supposed to be strong in the flesh, but God knows this, what's her name? Lavelle, talking about submitting to your man and he will hold you. Well, he ain't holding nothing. And that's a problem, right? Not to say that sex is everything in a relationship, but my God, if you can't even get your nuts cracked for the honeymoon, what is there to look forward to for the rest of the relationship? And it's not like you got into it knowing the situation. So the real fraud, it seems to me, may have been against Miss Lorna. She was defrauded. She was never told, I have an issue down there. Because God knows Miss Lorna is a beautiful woman. I'm sure she can get a man. She probably would have said, X. No, thank you. Miss Lorna.
Hey.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm going to ask you the question straight up. Had you known that he had some deficiencies in that department that you now know about, would you have ever married him?
No, the answer to that question. No, I wouldn't have.
Thank you. Honesty. That's what we're looking for this morning. And like I said, we know it's not everything, but it is a large part of the intimacy that people expect in a marriage and in a relationship. And I think the fact that he never told you about it, even after you said that you tried to, initiate a conversation on the lines of, sexually, what are you into? What do you like? And he was just like shutting it down. Oh, he's not a 5-minute man. Well, right. He's definitely not a 5-minute man. He's not even a 2-minute man or a 1-minute man. He's a no-minute man. And so, that's a little bit of a problem. All right, well, let's move on from that because that's only one of his shortcomings, quite literally. He made a number of assertions, Miss Lorna, over the weekend, and we're going to have a look at the petition and start to get into some of those. But before we do that, I wanted to give you an opportunity to conclude your story. So I think that by Friday, we had gotten up to the point where you were here in the Cayman Islands. You found yourself a bit stranded. You had gone to the police, detective, I think Yearwood, or Inspector Yearwood, to see, what could be done. You had to make arrangements to shorten your trip from the month-long anticipated stay to, you ended up staying, was it a week? Uh-oh, I think we might have a little connection with a little issue.
10 days.
10 days. Okay. So it went from 30 days to 10 days. And then you were out of here. And tell us, we heard some very interesting things that transpired, but at the point now that you are leaving and returning to Jamaica, what on earth is going through your head?
I was just over. I was just thinking that it's over. That's it. The end of it.
Yes.
Because before I left, because for me, the type of person that I am, I really don't like to leave stuff in the open, like up in the air like that. So
Yeah.
before I left the Cayman Islands, I did reach out to Mr. Watt and I said, we need to talk. Not talking to the sense where I needed him back, because that was already gone through the window.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make some peace and to make some arrangements on what are we going to do, if we're going to do the annulment or we're going to do the divorce.
Yeah.
But he was very arrogant when I called him. So I just left it and I came back home. And then in February, he started just like right away. Just start from December. He was doing a lot of stuff. But in January, he started doing too much. Like he start posting stuff on his WhatsApp messages to the point where the cameraman that took the pictures at our wedding texted me and said, Miss Newell, is everything okay?
Uh-oh. Looks like we're tripping out on the
And
connection a little bit.
I was like, yeah, I'm good. Why did you ask? He was like, I see you're posting a lot of stuff. I responded by laughing. Oh
Mm-hmm.
no.
Yeah, sorry, the connection seems a little bit spotty today. So you were saying that your cameraman, your photographer reached out to you
Can you hear me?
based on, yes, I can hear you
Okay.
now. The internet was kind of tripping out, but you said that basically your cameraman had reached out to you based on the postings or the
Yes.
status updates that he saw Gregory doing.
Yes. I asked him what was he talking about because by this point I already blocked him.
Mm-hmm.
And he screenshot them and he sent them to me, and I was shocked. I was like, okay then. But because I was just over that, I just ignored him because I'm better than that, to be honest.
Okay, Lorna, just one
I
second.
don't have time to be going back and forth. And because I know that he's narcissistic, I just leave him alone because I know he's seeking attention. So I just left him alone.
Okay, Lorna, the connection is just a little bit
He just
spotty.
kept on doing stuff. I tried to access my Facebook account.
Yeah,
He
sorry, Lorna.
went on Facebook and reported all my videos. When I tried to make a new account,
yeah, my apologies. You were just kind of breaking up. The internet was tripping in and out a little bit. So, yeah, but unfortunately, we can't hear you clearly. So we don't want to miss a minute of this. Karen says that anytime a man says, I'm not no 5-minute man, you should ask him to further clarify, to add clarity to that statement. That's a very good point, Karen, because we're interpreting that one way, but God knows now we could see how that could be interpreted a very different way. So yeah, the connection isn't good. Let's try it again. So let's start over. We heard the bit about the photographer. Let's see now if we can hear what you were saying about your Facebook account.
Right. So I ignored him because I knew he's seeking attention. So I went to access my Facebook account and he already hacked into it or whatever he did. And he reported all of my videos because when I'm trying to access them, they were gone. And so every time I try to do a new Facebook account, they would give me access. But as soon as I put up a photograph, they will take it down. So I started laughing because I knew this was coming from him. He started sending me emails, like nasty emails talking about nasty stuff. I tried to block him off my email and he kept sending epistles upon epistles upon epistles of him just venting and discriminating me and slandering me and saying I was looking his brother on the day we were married, I'm money and all sort of things. I was hungry in Jamaica and I was starving, and he saw me and picked me up. It was like a whole lot of nasty stuff. So I also ignored him just the same because I knew he was seeking attention. Then
So
on the
let me just pause you right there, right? So he says to us over the weekend that he wants to come on and tell the truth. So when he's making a statement like you were starving in Jamaica, how would the man be able to, from your Facebook page, see that you were starving? I'm just curious because remember now that's how he met you, right?
yeah.
So what were you saying on Facebook that might have made anyone conclude that you were starving? Because I've had a look at your Facebook page and every single picture, you look good to me. You now look like you're
Oh
starving,
dear.
right?
Sweetheart, if I go to bed hungry, I'm the one who wants to be hungry. My house is never out of food ever.
Trust me, you could never be hungry and looking how good you look.
I'm
No.
blessed. You never see the righteous forsaken or his seed begging bread. I'm never hungry.
Yeah. So anyway, and why would he want to? I mean, it begs the question: why would a man here in the Cayman Islands who have his own financial issues be looking to pick up a hungry woman? I mean, let's be honest here, folks. Nobody in
Exactly.
their right mind's going to do that.
Exactly.
So why do you think he reached out to you and wanted to get married? You probably thought about this a million times. What do you think his end goal is?
At this point, I think he targets females that looks like they have money.
Okay. So he might be looking for you to contribute to his household more than he's contributing to his household.
Yes, because he wanted me to pack my stuff, my furnitures and everything and move to the Cayman Islands.
Furniture?
Yeah.
So you must bring furniture into his matrimonial home that you don't know nothing about?
Yeah. And to pick up my daughter and my furniture and my life here in Jamaica, my ministry, everything, to just come to the Cayman Islands.
No, sir.
Yeah.
Jerry says that sounds like a new kind of sugar mama deal. All right. That wouldn't have worked for you, I'm sure.
No, it wouldn't.
Now, they have sought to attack you on the basis that they say that you claim that you are a prophetess and that, you know, if you were a good Christian woman, you'd be submitting yourself to this man. What are your thoughts on that from someone who is in the church and who's trying to be, you know, a good Christian? When you hear a statement like that, what comes to mind?
Okay, first of all, I never walk around telling anyone that I'm a prophetess. I do have the gift of prophecy, but I repeat, I never told this man I'm a prophetess. He came to his own conclusion that I'm a prophetess because he's looking some clout. He wanted people to say that he's marrying a powerful woman, a dynamic woman. It got to the point where he went on Facebook, took all the things that I had on there preaching and put it on his status. And he screenshot them and sent them to me saying, oh, when you come to Cayman, even when he came here the first time, I went out to preach and he videotaped it and I said to him, do not put it on the internet. And by the time I look, he put it on Facebook.
Wow.
Because I'm not that type of person. I would rather, because I'm still in training, if you understand what I'm saying. Whatever I do, no matter how good I am, I still think I could do better. So I would not want to be posting. And remember, Facebook is like global. So I don't want to be putting something on Facebook and then when I listen to it again, it don't sound right or I make a mistake over there and that wasn't totally right or stuff. So I don't post my stuff. I listen to them first and then I will save them, but I will never post them.
Yeah. Wow.
So I just think he wanted somebody with something to build his character, really. So that's what it is, because at the end of the day, he's not saved, to be honest. He's not a Christian. He's just in the church, hiding behind the church.
Well, you know what these young people call it? We have some young folks into the live stream this morning, like Atlas. He's one of the younger ones. They call that type of activity clout chasing. We see it all the time, where people are trying to elevate themselves, especially on social media, to give a certain impression, to get enough likes and followers and whatever.
Right.
Because once you have clout, you know what I'm saying? You can kind of, you get to use the air horn button. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Things sell off, and it's kind of like it's a very it's like attention seeking in the new era of social
Yes.
media.
And power, and he's hungry for power.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you realize I'm the fourth wife and he only attacks me and the second wife, because we are basically dynamic women in the church. We're not rebellious because, okay, let's take rebellion out of it. Let's put submission into the question.
Yes.
Okay, how do I submit to someone that is not a man of God? He doesn't even pray. This man does not pray. This man don't even bless his food, simple thing like that, to eat it. This man will go to his bed and do not pray. I don't know how. When we were on the honeymoon, we actually have a disagreement because I'm saying, you can't expect me to wake up every morning and pray. You are the man. You're to take the lead. And he was like, to be honest, I wasn't even thinking about it. So I'm saying, no, but you're a man. And if you're the head of the house, then you are to initiate devotion. If I'm sleeping, you wake me up, baby, it's time for devotion, whatever. He didn't want none of that. So at one point, he was always praying to himself. And I'm saying, how could we be sitting here praying and you're praying to yourself? He was like, because he's not praying out loud, that doesn't mean he's not praying. But I'm saying, listen, if you're praying, it's not like you're going to be on top of your voice, but you could pray so I could hear what you're saying. And he was very upset.
Yes, maybe he was praying for divine intervention about that little issue, and never really wanted you to hear that. But
I can't submit to somebody that's disrespectful. He is like crazy, really. How can I submit to a man that's not even a man of God? Because he's not saved. I'm telling you, he's only in the church. This man is not, he doesn't. Listen, if somebody, I have met people in my lifetime, and I have met fake people, and I have met people that are men of God because I was trained by some of the best. I know some of the best. I go to the school, the Bible school I went to. He's still the best. I was one of the best. So I know what I was taught, and I know what to look for, and I know what my giftings are. And I'm telling you, this man was a wolf in sheep clothing because he pretended straight till the day we got married. Because all the other things that happened before we got married, what could have been overlooked.
Right.
So he started acting up the day we got married. As soon as the vow was said, even
looks like Miss Lorna's connection is frozen.
my mother, when I really don't like the way this man is rushing. Yeah, I'm back.
Sorry, honey. So you said even your mother was saying she didn't like how it was rushing?
How he was rushing to put a ring on my finger, like something is definitely he has an agenda. That's what my mom said.
Well, Andrea weighs in on this concept of submitting yourself to a man. She says you can and should submit to any man, Christian or not, but he must be in the position to lead and is capable to do so.
Amen. So, I totally agree. Totally agree.
Mr. Walton says the word says if you pray in secret, you will be rewarded openly. Just saying.
Woo! True. Yeah, that's what the scripture says. That's what the scripture says. But this is because he doesn't know how to pray, and I can't kill him if he doesn't know how to pray. But for somebody that's on Facebook every day, talking about the wisdom of God and the knowledge that God has given to him and all of this, if you don't pray, how are you going to have a relationship with God?
Yes. What a mess. All right. So tell us then how it ended. So in February, he sent you papers for the annulment.
Yes.
And that was the annulment that Judge Ramsey had a look at, and Judge Ramsey made her decision. I can tell you that she basically said that it was not fraud. Now, there's two primary things that he was alleging. So let's have a look at what those things are. Number one, he claims that you could not obtain a police clearance.
A police clearance.
Yes. Tell us
Yeah.
about that situation briefly.
Okay, so in 2008, I was seeing somebody. We lived together. We were engaged, everything, but he was doing too much. He was very promiscuous. I wasn't a Christian at the time. And we had a disagreement and I left. I moved out of his house. And he came back. He came to my mom's where I was staying at the time, and we had a disagreement and we fought. He broke my finger. I broke his ribs. It was just as simple as that. And we went to court.
Just out of curiosity, how you break the man ribs? I want to know. That's a kung fu punch or what?
No, it was just stones. I hit him in his side, in his rib with stones.
Oh, okay. But I mean, if you broke your finger, then we can't really.
Right. Anyway, we went to court, and the court was thrown out because it was a case and cross case, and I was charged for unlawful wounding.
Okay.
So that case was thrown out. I wasn't charged. He wasn't charged. It was just the judge just basically told us that it's a case and cross case because he damaged me, I damaged him, but because he was a police officer, he used his authority to get me arrested.
Oh, he was a police officer.
Because it wasn't even necessary for me to get arrested. Yes. So when he was forcing me to come to the Cayman Islands, which I really was not ready, we went and I went to get the police clearance, and they told me right there and then that the police record, and they told me that I had to go back to the court's office in Mandeville and get the document to bring back to them so I could get the police record. I even have a copy here with me, and I copied it, and me and Mr. Wadsworth we went there and we gave it to them. And when I went back, he was saying to me that I'm to pay the persons in there because they're not going to give it to me unless I pay them. And I told him straight up, I said, listen, I'm not going to pay anybody to do their jobs. If they do it and they do it efficiently, then I will give them a tip. But I'm not going to pay for that. That's illegal. And moreover, what kind of man of God you're telling me to bribe people to look for stuff for me?
Oh, gosh. So he was telling you to pay under the table.
Yes.
The people at the records office in Mandeville so that you can get your police record.
Yes.
Wow. All right.
So even in July, when I was before I left Jamaica, I went back there and I asked them what's going on with the police record, and the lady specifically told me that, Miss, it's an old file. We have relocated and we have to literally go back to the court's office to search manually for this. So it could take up to 2 years for me to get for me to get that letter to go back to the police record. So it's not like I killed anybody or I was arrested for stealing or doing, and that's what it was.
All right. So you got to run around. Basically, you never got the police record in the amount of time that Mr. Watts thought you should have gotten it. Mind you, you were only married for a couple months at that point, right?
Yeah, a couple days.
Oh, okay.
When I got the letter was the time we came back from our honeymoon, and I went there the Wednesday after the honeymoon, and he left the Thursday.
Okay, all right. So there was that issue, and then he also claimed that he had told you that he wanted more children, and you apparently had. Well, it's kind of weird how he said this in the court documents, that somehow he felt like he had convinced you, despite the fact that you had said no, you did not want any more children. He claims that he had managed to convince you, and then obviously you were not having any more children. So I'm a bit confused by that.
Okay.
Can you clarify that point?
Okay, from day one, I told him I do not want kids. And it might be selfish on my part, but it wasn't a thing that I said I'm die-hearted not wanting any more children, because if he was a good man and a good husband and he deserved a child, I would have done it. But the thing is, I knowing how he is and his background and stuff, and moreover, from the beginning, I said to him, I don't want kids because of his age. It wasn't because I am adamant that I don't want kids. I just his age and my age. He's 53, 54 today. A matter of fact, because today's his birthday.
Today's his birthday?
Yes.
What? Hold on a second. We got a happy birthday button right here. Coming right up. Mr. Gregory, happy birthday today. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. All right. Happy birthday to you there, Gregory. Well, that's nice that you remembered his birthday.
I told him now, I said to him, why would you? And moreover, he didn't even say he wanted a child. He was specific that he needed a son.
Oh, say what?
Yes.
Okay, and so you were going to be guaranteeing that how?
Say that again?
You would be guaranteeing a son how?
Good question.
Okay, all right, well, okay.
Anyways, he said, I told him directly, I said, I do not want kids. Then we spoke like 3 times about kids, and that was the initial stage. He said, how do you feel about having more kids? I said, I do not want any more children. He said he has 2 daughters and he needed a son. And his wife is going to need a son from his wife. I said to him, why didn't you ask your other wives to give you a son? Why now you're gonna ask me to give you a son? And I'm saying, you don't tell God what to give. If I get pregnant, then we could pray and say, Lord, this is what our preferences are. But I already have 3 children. I have a son, I have 2 daughters. So you could adopt my son if you need a son, or you could have a better relationship with my son if you so need a son. He was like, we left it right there. Then after we got married and I came to the Cayman Islands, he said to me again, you know, give me my son. And I looked at him and I said, what? I said, you're crazy. And he was like, what do you mean? I said, how are you going to get a son? I tell me, because we all know what's happening in the bedroom. So how are you going to get a son? Don't you have to be erected first?
I would say so. I mean, we believe in immaculate conception, but as far as I know, that has only happened once that we're going to believe in. But maybe he had such a strong faith that, it might have happened again. All right. So let's move past that then. So basically you said, you had some discussions about it. You kept saying no. In the court petitions, he claimed that he had convinced you. And so you had deceived him. And so
no, he said to me, how you want to that is my daughter's father now he was referring to. How you want to get a man where left you stranded and go marry somebody else a child, but you can't give me a child? I said to him, why you got to look at it like that? Why can't you just look at it that I have 3 children? I am not financially stable. I don't own a house. I don't own anything. My business is struggling. Why would I go and add a child to it? And moreover, I said, look how old you are. You're 53. When the child is 18 years old, you'll be a grandfather going to their graduation. So I said, I'm not going to do that. I have children already. All we need to do is come together and build a business so we can support the ones that we have. He was upset. But I now realize, because I listened to part of his life and I couldn't even stomach listening to it, because all the things that we talked about, he twisted them. So to even have a good conversation with him is pointless.
Okay. So listen, Mr. Watts filed this application for an annulment in court. The judgment was handed down July the 23rd. It says in the petition here that you were served at the end of February of 2020, February the 28th in Jamaica. The judge had several options available to her in terms of Section 15 of the Matrimonial Causes Law. One of the options available is that she could have asked the petitioner for further evidence, or to give oral evidence, or to make directions for the trial of the petition in accordance to Rule 16, or dismiss the petition is one of the final options. In this case, the petition was dismissed. And so what the judge actually said in her judgment is that he was alleging fraud, because that is one of the grounds on which you can actually obtain an annulment. And so, you know, in section 20 of the judgment, the judge said he also knew that she was ambivalent about another child and yet had persuaded himself that he had changed her mind. So even the judge was not convinced that he had changed her mind. The judge was convinced that he had persuaded himself that he had changed her mind. And this is the exact words. As he put it in his petition, he appealed to her by telling her it was unfair for her to have given children to men who never married her, but would be reluctant to give her husband a child that he so desires. Her response was that that she had never looked at it that way before, whereupon he believed that the matter was resolved. The allegation of fraud or fraudulent misrepresentation on which Mr. Watt relies cannot avail him in this application to have his marriage to Miss Nunez declared void. The case falls squarely within the principle enunciated, and then she gives a case here, that no mistake as to the qualities of the person will impeach the bond of marriage. In other words, a mistake as to your partner's attributes is not grounds for avoiding a marriage, as disappointment as to their character does not constitute fraud, and the petition is dismissed. So the judge dismissed that petition. Obviously, that came out in July. It was made available in September.
It was the 31st of August.
Yes, the date of the decision was I think July, but by the time it went online, it was then late August, right? So CMR obviously put up the story, as we do different, cases all the time. And that's kind of how this kick-started. Now he has filed another petition. I want us to have a look at that and some of the details in that petition. So good morning to those of you who are joining us late. Sophia says, this is where it's at. Tell me more. And San, him first there to everybody. Now it's everybody's business. Him first there. Okay. Morna says everyone has to go into pit hole or hole. Why don't you go on crosstalk? This kitchen is too hot for you. So I think she's referring to somebody else who was saying, I think that was Miss Elaine here, saying, why are we having this discussion at all? It's making the two of you look bad. I think we answered that question early on, Elaine. So go back to the beginning of the show and you'll get that question answered. Cece wants to know, how on earth were you going to give him a son? We wanted to know the same thing. Good morning, Sai. Rosa is here for it as well. So yes, Rosa is saying that he can go on his Facebook page and slander his wife. And now that she's defending herself, she's wrong. Yes, apparently.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cece, talk to your friend. And Rosa also makes the point that this could be your daughter, and this could be any of us, to be quite frank and honest, right? So, I mean, how many of us have not fell for people who have con artistry ways before? Probably everybody can raise their hand to that.
Exactly.
Praise the Lord.
All right. So let's have a look at the petition, Lorna. I'm going to pull up some of the pages of it here, and I want us to have a discussion on exactly what this is. Let me see now. Am I able to? I think you'll stay up in the background, but let me see if I can pull up the very first page. I think this is page 1. So I'm just going to pull this up on a second screen here so I can kind of see. Do you have the petition handy in front of you by any chance?
Yes, I do.
All right, good. Because you might be able to help us make out some of the text. But this is page 1 of the document, of the petition now that was just served on you. When did you get this one, Lorna? Last week or the week before?
He sent it the 4th of September, but I wasn't in the island, so I picked it up like last week.
Oh, okay. All right.
Because
So
I came back and I was in quarantine, so I couldn't go on the road.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me just see the document here now. So we have this first, is this the same page? Yes. We have this first page here. I think these are just the preliminary bits and pieces.
Right.
He just says, you know, I, Gregory Anthony Ricardo Watts of 334 Mahogany Way, Georgetown. He says that there's no possibility of reconciliation between the respondent and me. The certificate of marriage, yes, filed fully and correctly describes true particulars of my marriage. As set out in the petition, I cannot tolerate living with the respondent any longer. Well, to be honest, the two of you didn't really live together.
Right.
I have not attempted to willfully deceive the court in any manner or particular material to this petition, and there's been no collusion between the respondent and me. Okay, so that's the first page. Very well. Then he goes on to, I think this is the second page. This might be a little bit more of the meat and potatoes. He says that the petitioner signed, it's kind of difficult to see this.
The petitioner stated that he and the respondent met on social media. There was an instant connection because both parties are Christians. The respondent informed the petitioner that she was a preacher and a prophetess. Lie. Also, the respondent informed the petitioner that she had received several prophecies regarding God sending her a husband, and other prophecies pointed to him. Based on everything that the respondent said to the petitioner, he became interested in dating her. Shortly afterwards, he traveled to Jamaica and officially supported it by granting the church's policy for lengthy dating and courtship to avoid them falling into sin, and so that the parties began to make wedding plans in earnest. So should I continue?
Yes, my dear child, because I can't read it till fine print.
So, okay, so let me address that one. First, he's lying because he was the one who told me that, oh, I'll look you on Messenger. And the second of all, we started making wedding plans long before he came to Jamaica. So that's another lie. I never once told him I was a preacher or a prophetess. I told him that I was a minister, never a prophetess or a preacher, because I would have to show documents, and I only have documents to show that I am a licensed minister. Anyways. Number 7, the petitioner stated that he married the respondent because she convinced him that she was a true woman of God. I am. This meant that she was not a church hypocrite, but one who truly embraced and submitted to the Lord and his directives for righteousness. This was good news to the petitioner's ear, as he had been married thrice before, but which he had ended badly, and now was truly desirous of finding such a woman to marry. Of course, discounting his first marriage breakup because that was his fault, the petitioner opened.
Okay.
Opened is the word. One day, shy of 1 month after the marriage ceremony, on the 15th of December 2019, the petitioner brought the respondent allegedly for the first time to the Cayman Islands. During their courtship, the respondent had told the petitioner that she had never been to the Cayman Islands and that she knew no one in the Cayman Islands. Lies. But the petitioner was to find out later, after her arrival, that in fact she knew a lot of people here. Perhaps she lied because the petitioner had told her during dating that because his prior marriage breakup, most especially his second marriage, had caused him great embarrassment within his close-knit community. He was not desirous of dating anyone in the Cayman Islands because the negative stigma towards him.
Stick a pin. All right. So we hear that in the words of Mr. Watts himself, he's saying that was the second marriage or the third marriage? The
Second.
second one. All right. So he's again claiming another wife had made him look bad in the community. And because of that, he basically wanted to import a bride that no one knew anything about. Interesting. All right. Continue, my dear.
On the 22nd of December 2019, 7 days after her arrival, the petitioner states that he took the respondent to his church for the first time. At the end of the service, the petitioner got up to address the congregation in promoting an upcoming gospel concert that he was hosting. While he was thus engaged, out of the corner of his eyes, he noticed that the respondent grabbed onto the pastor and whispered in his ear, not a lie. She later went into the office and locked the door. Wow. She claimed that she got a word from the Lord for pastor. The petitioner immediately knew that was not true and felt that she had some ulterior motives. Wonder what that was. There are protocols to follow when delivering a word from the Lord. He is an intelligent God. And in this case, the petitioner stated that he had not even introduced his wife to the pastor. So all the intimate gestures and going to lock herself into his office even after he spoke to her, brought immediate embarrassment to the petitioner.
Looks like we're breaking up there. So until we can get Miss Lorna back clearly, let's read some of your comments. So Evelyn said, did she know?
Lock herself.
Oh, sorry, Lorna. You were starting to break up there.
Right.
Yeah, just give me 1 second. I was just putting my mic back on. My dog Coco wanted to join in on the conversation this morning, so I had to let her in. So Evelyn says, did she know that he is an ex-police officer? Did he ever tell you he's an ex-police officer as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So she knew that. So sorry, continue because we weren't hearing you. So just read that last little bit again.
Okay. On September 22nd, no, on Sunday, the 22nd of December 2019, 7 days after her arrival, the petitioner stated that he took the respondent to his church for the first time. At the end of the service, the petitioner got up to address the congregation in promoting an upcoming gospel concert that he was hosting. While he was thus engaged, out of the corner of his eyes, he noticed that the respondent grabbed onto the pastor and whispered in his ear. She later went into his office and locked the door. Wow. She claimed that she got a word from the Lord for pastor. The petitioner immediately knew that was a lie. Or it wasn't, and felt that she had some ulterior motives. Interesting. There are protocols to follow and when delivering a word from the Lord. He is an intelligent God. And in this case, the petitioner stated that he had not introduced his wife to the pastor. So all that intimate gesture, you wonder what that was, and going to lock herself into his office even after he spoke to her, brought immediate embarrassment to the petitioner, especially for the fact that some church members were still there, seeing all that was taking place. As it turns out, what she told the pastor was definitely not a message from the Lord. It was immediately clear that she had some ulterior motives.
So, I noticed that one of the things he kept saying is that you had ulterior motives, but he never states in the petition what the ulterior motives are.
That's what I'm saying. But basically what he said to me when we were in the car going home, he was saying, I'm looking as pastor. So the question that I want to ask is that I've never met your pastor before. You have never introduced me to the pastor as you claim, because that's a lie as well. We weren't officially like one-on-one, this is my wife, so and so, but he knew me from social media. He had sent me messages between him and his pastor talking about me, and he was like, oh, I see her, she's dynamic, I like her. When she comes to Cayman Islands, we would like to meet and stuff like that, because he needed help. So when I went to the church, the pastor knew right off the bat that I was his wife. And the next question that I'm asking, put me aside. So you're basically saying that not only me have ulterior motives, but your pastor have ulterior motives too. Because why would I just meet somebody or not officially introduced and then out of the blue gone to look your pastor? So a summy woman. And I live in Jamaica. Let's be real here. I live in Jamaica. If I'm the promiscuous person that he thinks I am, if I am this money person that he said I am, why would I go to the Cayman Islands and blatantly stand before him looking a man? Come on.
What a
That
mess.
don't make no sense. I live in Jamaica. I can have any man if I want to. Because there's tons of churchmen, there's tons of men that I've turned down. So what's his problem?
Yeah.
So this was all coming from insecurity.
Yeah. What else of substance does he say in the report? I know he mentions Cayman Mall Road. We got to mention in your divorce papers now.
Yes. I don't really want to read all of it. Okay. So despite his marriage and suspicions, however, the petitioner did not accuse, but asked the petitioner about 6 times, did God truly give you a word for pastor? That's not true. What he did was tell me that, did you give pastor your number? It wasn't that did God give you a word. He said, yeah, liar. You're too lie. God no give you no word for give pastor. Yeah, look, my pastor. Did you give pastor your number? 6 times, because he did it repeatedly. She was silent for each question. That is true. Then suddenly she uttered, go as your mother. Not true. I did tell him that, but that's not when I told him, because I was quiet from the whole journey from the church right home to about 45 minutes into him arguing. I told him that when he started touching my kids and telling me how many men screwed me and didn't marry me and I was nobody, and I raised that whore because my daughter is just 23 years old and has 2 children for 2 different men. That's when I told him that. Not saying I was correct to do it, because I shouldn't have allowed him to get me to that place. But he pushed me, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll be honest with you, I have a daughter, and if I was with a man that called my daughter whore, he would have gotten more than just talking about his mommy. He would have gotten a box upside his head straight up. But anyway, nonetheless, basically in this petition, he's trying to prove then that the marriage has broken down irretrievably, because under the matrimonial causes law, that's another section now under which you can end a divorce. I think it's pretty clear to anyone with a little bit of common sense that the marriage is done. Yes?
Exactly.
All right.
So in this part, the petitioner further stated that on Monday, the 31st of August, 2020, Sandra Hill of Cayman Mall Road contacted him by Facebook Messenger stating that their staff reporter is doing a story on my divorce petition. He knew that Cayman Mall Road is not about professional journalism, but a gossip blog. So he told her that his divorce was not up for public shaming and gossip. He expressed to her that Cayman is a small community and he did not know why she dug his file up to highlight, but that he knew her agendas, which was to find just about anyone to shame them in the community. However, the petitioner found out later that she had already published the piece, and as suspected, it was a smear article that proffered information that was utterly false, but they served the purpose to embarrass him. Information that the petitioner can easily refute, owing to the fact that he had reported that and text messages as evidence to expose the lies for what they really are.
All right, just a second, my dear child. So when somebody calls me a liar, now I take point with that, and I have to defend myself. So he has filed this court document where he's claiming that I have lied on him, or Cayman Mall Road has lied on him. So let me just back up 2 shakes here. so that we can see exactly what transpired. So in our article, 99% of what is posted there speaks to what is in the annulment petition, what's in the actual judgment, because to be honest, I've not actually seen the petition itself, but what the judgment says about the petition and what Mr. Watt alleges to have transpired. However, there is a paragraph here, one single paragraph, that says exclusive CMR sources indicate that Watt was interested in premarital sex with Nunes. Mr. Nunes herself, Lorna, has never said this, and she refused, and that the marriage was intended to gain access to her physically. In fact, they overheard Watt himself sharing the details of the marriage, which he neglected to include in his divorce petition. So this is somebody else. And in fact, the irony is, of the 293 people listening right now, one of those persons is watching this show. They said they heard with their own two ears Mr. Gregory bragging to another man about how he wanted to have sex with her, but because she was in the church, she would not have sex with him. And so then the sole purpose, this is what he told somebody else, of marrying her was to have sex. Understand what I just said to you? This is what he told to somebody else, and people heard it with their own ears. And there's no reason whatsoever for this person to lie on Mr. Gregory. All right. Another source says sources indicate that apparently, this is what was being said from people in their church, that she claims to be a prophetess, which obviously she says now that that isn't true. She's not said that, but he has said that. And issues started when she arrived in the church in Cayman. Church members are well familiar with the situation and shared that he became upset when she privately met with the pastor of their church. He informed the pastor that meeting with his wife privately was disrespecting him. So those two paragraphs were not included in the documentation, the judgment from the court. That was other people who came forward. And we also said we understand that this is his fourth marriage, and Watt denies that he has been married that many times. Now, let me try to find where he actually denied that, because he said in his back and forth conversations with us on WhatsApp that we were lying on him, and he was blaming Lorna, provided any of that information that's in the article. These were other people. One person, like I said, heard him talking to another man, claiming that he wanted to sex up Miss Lorna. And the only way he could do that was to get her to marry him because she was a church woman. Somebody else who was familiar and in the church said that they were aware of the fact that he, that this altercation, whatever it was with the pastor, that he got upset that she went in to see the pastor, had taken place. So I just want to back up a little bit in terms of what Mr. Watts said to us. Okay, so this is August the 31st at 5:10 p.m. So we reached out to him at 4:01 p.m. By the time he got back to us, the story had just gone up, and I can actually double check the exact time of publication, because that is how precise the systems are that we use. So give me 1 second here. I'm going to tell you guys the exact details. So again, Mr. Watts is here lying on CMR about, oh, we contacted him after the story had gone up. That is not the case, Mr. Watts. Let me tell you here now. Let me just look at the timestamps. And these are things that obviously only people on the back end can see. But give me 1 second and I will tell you exactly when the story was published. So let me just see our history now. Where is it here in the system? So I'm concerned that Mr. Watts in his petition actually went as far as lying on us. So let me just see, what time is 1600 hours, folks? I always forget on the military.
4 o'clock. That's
Okay,
4 o'clock.
That's 4 o'clock. So the article went up the very first time it was published at 4:44 on August the 31st. When did we reach out to him? We reached out to him. And again, this is on WhatsApp Messenger. Let me just pull back up. Or sorry, Facebook Messenger. We reached out to him at 4:01 p.m. So 43 minutes later, we waited and waited and waited. And he did not get back to us at 5:10 to just come back and say, hey, Sandy, what case? At that point, I'm sure Mr. Watts already knew the article was up. So then he says that I respond, I say the divorce petition. And he says, I don't understand. Why would your staff reporter be doing a story on my divorce? That's my personal business. And I reply and say, it's a reported case, so it's a public record. And this is what he says.
I don't understand, Sandy. I need to understand this. What is a reported case? I don't understand. Help me to understand. If I'm getting a divorce, why is Cayman Mall Road interested in that? When there are a lot of people in the Cayman Islands get divorced every day. So please enlighten me. I need to know.
All
what
right.
This is really all about. And who reported this case?
So he doesn't understand when we say it's a reported case, so it's in the public record. Who reports it? Well, the court makes the things publicly available. I'm going to give you guys a link here. So if you go to judicial.ky/court, they report, these are on what they call judgments register, and you can see all of the cases here. So some of you might do well with having a read of some of those cases. Let me just put the link here. So he doesn't understand what that means when we say it's reported, but he continues.
Could you tell me, Sandy, who is your source for this information, please? Because I am going to get in touch with the court's office tomorrow to find out what this garbage is all about.
All right, so he wants to know who our source is. We say it's a public, the judgment is public. And I said the court makes them available online for all to access. The court documents are the source. And then I respond. Let's hear what I say to him. Hey, Ricardo. Yeah, so they make, nothing in court is confidential unless it's like a juvenile, or there are certain hearings where the judge will say it might be sub judice or whatever. But once a decision is made, all decisions are public. So the judge writes her decision. It's a written decision, and that decision is then made available online. And we have a court. Sometimes I cover court stuff, like I actually go to court, and then other people will cover court stories. So we do stories all the time. And I guess this one is of interest because it's not every day that judges get to look at what marital fraud is considered. So this was a very unusual case in that sense, and that it, looked at the definition of fraud. Documents are, nothing in court is confidential. This is what people don't realize. Family matters are not confidential. If they involve minors, you can't use a minor's name, but they use like initials in cases like that to kind of protect the identity of minors. But yeah, marriage and divorces are they're a matter of public record. So when we say matter of public record, in other words, it's not private, So then he goes on to say the following, and he says that, let me just pull this up for you guys to see so that you can see really what Mr. Watts had to say for himself. So he says that I kept saying that. I think I was only explaining to him what his question was. But he goes on to say that, here we go. You keep saying that. My life is not a public case open for your blog. I stopped following Mall Road because honestly, what I see mostly is you all going out of your way to dig up stuff on people to embarrass them. And especially in a close-knit community like this. This is evil. If I choose to divulge anything about my experience, that's my choice. For the record, I'm not in agreement with you or anyone else making a salacious story out of my tragedy. Why weren't you interested to report and support me when I was fighting to keep my house? I know why, not juicy or shaming enough. Why do you want to highlight my divorce? I'm not the one in Cayman who has divorced. I'm not the only one in Cayman who is divorced or is divorcing. Even if my application for annulment is unique, I am protesting you making a story out of it. Okay. I have been through a whole lot of things here in Cayman after having experienced many setbacks and tragedies, which have proven to be very traumatic for me. I'm not traumatized further. I will not be traumatized further by agreeing for you to go out of your way to pick this from public records to make a story out of it. Even if it's in public records, he goes on to say, regular Joe still would not know about it. So when you put it on your gossip column, you set the tongues wagging again, thus causing me to relive this trauma. So I put this all in writing that I'm opposed to you're highlighting my tragedy for your blog. And I said, okay, actually, we did report on your house situation. And then I sent him a screenshot of that dated December the 29th, 2017, because here again, Mr. Watts is accusing us of doing something which is not the truth. And so we take him to task on it because this was the easiest thing in the world to prove. So Mr. Watts seems to have a very convenient memory when it suits him. So he does not remember that not only did we do a story on it, but we actually did an interview of him also on Straight Talk with Ruth Anna, where Ruth Anna and I sat in the studio with Mr. Watts and interviewed him. So do tell me, good folks listening, how is it possible for you to forget that we, one, did an entire story on this, and number two, we also interviewed you on Straight Talk for people to listen to the program and to call in to the program. Extremely selective memory. So then he says the following.
Oh, you did? Okay, well, I stand corrected on that. But as I said, my life is not up for public scandal, because that's basically what it will amount to, what it will boil down to. I know what I've been experiencing in the Cayman Islands these past few years, and it's not just with my house, with my marriages and everything. And everything has set me back, way back, devastated me. If it was not for my faith in God, I probably would have gone stark, raving mad.
All right. So he says he would have gone mad, and he continues.
And Cayman being such a close-knit community is not your regular place where news comes out and it goes over people's head. No. People are happy for stories like these so that they can have table talk about it. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons why I made a decision not to date anybody in Cayman ever again is for the same reason. They stigmatize you, they think they know your story, and they talk all kind of garbage. Right? So therefore, why would I agree for Cayman Moral Road to highlight my story, to put it out there? No, I'm not in agreement with that.
Well, first of all, let me just clarify this. We don't need people to be in agreement with anything that we publish. We publish things that are newsworthy or of interest in the community. Mr. Watts is absolutely correct. This is a small country. He seems to think that things go over people's head if they're not reported. Well, that's the whole job of reporting it, so that it doesn't go over people's head. You had made a very serious allegation as it concerns fraud. This is, in some respects, a very landmark case, because a lot of people may not know this, but the act of getting an annulment, right? Because there's certain things that you can apply under to get an annulment. One is that the marriage hasn't been consummated, and one is that the person has committed fraud. I think there's one or two other things that can actually get you an annulment. But it is very unusual for an individual to apply for an annulment. And so even applying for an annulment makes an application in court unusual. And then to see that the person has actually lost their application for the annulment on the basis that they just got it wrong is even more of an interesting point of discussion. So I'm just going to pull up a little bit here. You know, when I was in law school, this is one of the things that we talked about. How do you go about getting an annulment? What is an annulment? An annulment is where basically the court is saying that something so egregious has happened that essentially they are undoing the marriage. So it's as though it never happened. And had he been successful in getting his annulment, he could walk around and honestly say that he had only been married 3 times and not 4 times. And that is the power.
That was his aim.
Yes, and that is the power of an annulment. So I think that it's important for people to understand, you know, what an annulment is and how it works. And yes, there are only certain grounds that you can actually get an annulment on. So let us continue to listen to then what Mr. Watts had to say outside of that. So let me just see where we left off here.
And just to further inform you, Sandra, I'm going to the courts tomorrow to explore the possibilities of bringing a suit against you for defamation of character, because you claimed that your purpose for this is purely on the basis of that this is a unique case. But no, there is no reporting here. This is just shaming and embarrassing by getting into salacious details, some of them that you pick out of the petition to highlight for that purpose. And you spoke a lot of things that are absolutely untrue, absolutely not true, and the sources you got them from are not reliable source. You understand? And I can prove it. And so therefore, I'm going to the court tomorrow to or go to a lawyer to find out what I can do further where this is concerned. This kind of thing. Okay? You need to stop this kind of so-called reporting where you're deliberately going out of your way to shame people. And I know the reason why you sought for this story, because I am staunchly against homosexuality. You understand? And you are for it, and you're trying to shame me in this. You have not, your aim is already defeated in the spiritual realms. You understand? And you will wind up only shaming yourself ultimately. You understand? Because a lot of the stuff that you're saying here are absolutely, totally false, and I can prove it.
Well, I was confused when Mr. Watts, Mr. Gregory starts saying that I am targeting him because he's anti-homosexual. That was news to me. And I don't know if Gregory thinks that because we are Facebook friends, he's one of 2,500 plus, that because he's on my Facebook that I even see what he posts, because I don't. And I've never seen him post anything about the homosexual community. So if he is against that community or not, I don't know anything about it. So that was news to me. But you see how quickly the man jumps to conclusions that are completely false, right? Because I was like, you're against the gay community? Okay, that's news to me. So
Right.
he is claiming that I had picked out details out of his petition that are salacious or whatever. Listen, folks, you're able to go and read the judgment for yourself. You can read what Judge Ramsey said. It's not a complicated judgment. In fact, I think it might have only been, let me just have a quick look here at how many pages. It was, I think about 4 pages was her actual judgment. But
3.5.
3.5?
Yeah.
No, I think that was his petition. Her judgment was a little bit longer, but I mean, basically,
I have the judgment right here with me too.
Is it the judgment that was 3.5 pages?
Let me check.
Like 3 or 4 pages, but
Judgment, yes. Let me count it. 1.
it wasn't a long judgment, right? Is the point.
No, it wasn't.
And so we only picked out what the judge discussed about how she came to her decision. And the primary things that he was relying upon in his petition was the fact that this woman has allegedly lied to him about wanting more children and about the police clearance. That was the only thing. And I mean, look at where we are at now. I mean, honestly, right? This is a man who just couldn't leave it alone. You know, we did our story. It was what it was. He then gets on his platform and continues the charade, continues with the lies, to the point where, unfortunately, Miss Lorna had to come forward and say, listen, I need to defend my good name because I may not be perfect, but by God, my reputation in this situation is not what this man is trying to make it out to be. So let's continue listening to some further comments then by Mr. Watts that he sent to us.
There's nothing in the judgment that says I wanted to have sex with Lorna before we got married. I am a Christian, and that is absolutely not true. You stated the amount of times I got married, and that is absolutely untrue. You stated some other stuff that is absolutely untrue. So which source you got those things from? To try
Stick
to
a
be
pin, Sandra.
in the Cayman Islands.
Stick a pin right there.
Yes, ma'am.
He did say, okay. So one of his friends, after he came to Jamaica and saw me, what he did was I came in my room for the shawl because I gave him my room and I slept with my daughter. I came in the room for my prayer shawl and he pierced me right here where I was on the wall, and he used my hand, the back of my hand, to touch his privates. I moved my hand and I said to him, are you crazy? Me no want God kill me, so you better go and go sleep. That's what I said to him. He went back to the Cayman Islands and he told a female that he wanted to rip my shorts off of me, but I would not have it.
Now, Lorna,
yes,
you know, you probably should have taken the opportunity because it don't look like you never got it again. I'm just saying, girl, it must have been them shorts that day.
He only knew, no, because what he allowed me to touch, he was wearing a brief, so he coiled his stuff up in it so he could feel like it was. But, the whole point is he knew that I wasn't going to do it. That's why he attempted to do it.
Yeah. Well, he claims that he wasn't married for as many times as we said. Turns out this is indeed the fourth marriage. And funny enough, someone even sent us a video that he had done previously about talking about women and marriages. Apparently he's a marriage expert. He's actually written a book on how to have a successful marriage. And he has talked about the women in his past. And he has said that he is now on his fourth marriage and fourth divorce. So in his own words, he admitted that in another publication, but yet he told us that wasn't the case. So I was confused, but let's continue.
Christian character. I am a Christian, and I am going to seek recourse where this is concerned. You need to stop this kind of thing. And by the way, I think you deliberately take those unfounded stories and pitch them into your story.
Oops.
And the reason for that is because, as I said earlier, I make it very clear that I stand against homosexuality that you are in cahoots with. And so therefore, you're glad for this opportunity to try to shame me. Well, guess what? The devil is a liar. And I curse in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth that lying article that you did against me, and it shall return unto you.
All right, my dear child. He sound like Lavelle, trying to put bad mouth upon people. Bless him. So I reminded him that we asked him for a comment, and he's free to correct any details that he says are false. I said that you're given the opportunity to do so, way before the article was posted. And then he goes on and on about that.
Sunday, I have not read the judgment. I don't need to. I don't care to read it.
What?
All I need to do is to move forward with my life.
Okay.
Let me ask you, did you see anything in the judgment that says that I wanted to have sex with Lorna Nunes? Because if anything goes like that in the judgment, it is obviously what I would have put in my petition. And why would I lie on myself? Why would I lie about the number of times that I've been married? Where did you get those stories from?
Okay.
Between the time that you contacted me to say that you are about to do a story on it. That story was already done. The last time I checked, you're not Speedy Gonzalez. There's no way you could write an article that quickly between the time that you contacted me and I told you no. You already wrote it, prepared it, everything, and had it right there for publication. Right? So I mean, lest you think I'm an idiot, don't insult my intelligence any further like that. Okay? So therefore, I am definitely going to seek legal advice.
Mm-hmm.
You have evidence from what sources? People are free to speak whatever they want to speak, whatever lies they want to talk. And even if the sources even if it came from Lorna herself, Lorna obviously has been shamed by virtue of the fact that she married me fraudulently and I discarded her. And she's ashamed. And so therefore, in order to get back at me, she's going to say whatever she needs to say that she think might shame me further, even lie. So she cannot be seen as a reliable source. I don't know what garbage you're talking about.
That's laughable.
A third party that is not reliable information either.
Well, his fraud application was denied by the court, first of all.
You understand? So therefore, tomorrow I will definitely go speak to my lawyer.
All right. And he goes on a bit further.
I'm not making any offering to your page as you want me to do, to make any official.
He changed his mind this weekend.
I'm not giving you that. What you need to do is to substantiate your sources before you publish stories about people. And as I said to you earlier, especially because Cayman Islands is such a close-knit community, you have to be very careful what you're doing with people.
Coco, stop barking at the lies.
Trying to destroy people and their character under the guise of news reporting. They just tell you the other day there is no report and you continue this nonsense. You understand? You don't have your stories right. You just get a thing and it sounds salacious and nice and gossipy, and you feel that it will generate more interest for your page, and so you publish it. Well, over and over, you're gonna have to pay for that.
Well, my friends, he clearly said that he was not interested, and this is the final one.
So let's go to court.
Let's go.
Because you're gonna have to prove to the court some of these things that you're saying, where you get it from, how come you know they're true.
All right. So I'm still waiting to hear from him and his lawyer about the defamation lawsuit, because he claims that none of this stuff was true. And again, I'm a little bit confused because he's still alleging that Miss Lorna fraudulently had him enter into this marriage when the court has said that that's not the case, that was not fraud. Anyway, he has now filed a new petition. Lorna, you've made the decision to try to get rid of this man once and for all out of your life. And you have actually signed the petition. Yes, Darlene, he's caught up on this whole homosexuality thing, which I really have to wonder why. Him and I have never had a discussion. He's never even commented on anything that I posted on my page about human rights, homosexuality, nothing. I don't see any of his posts, to be quite honest. He did do a podcast of his own right after this. I think it was a couple days after this. There were people there who were unaware of, I guess, the full story, supportive of him. They're praying for him. They're praying for deliverance. You know, God got his back, blah, 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 blah.
Praise the Lord.
And that is wonderful for him, because that's exactly what he's looking. He's looking that sort of attention, right? Because he needs that to sustain himself. But at the end of the day, we've never had a conversation. So I am confused about why he thinks that I'm singling him out. How is this any different? Let me ask you guys this question, in all honesty, right? How is this any different than us covering his story and his version of things when Scotiabank was taking his house? So it's okay if the story suits him and if it's his story that he's giving, then we can cover it. Then we can have all the coverage about what he was saying about the bank, how the bank had treated him, how it was unfair, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the story that we did back then was quite a substantial story. In fact, let me just pull it up so we can remind ourselves, December the 29th of 2017, it was a long story, and it talked about essentially, him losing his house, what he had to say about it. Even mentioned here that he showed up, he gained support from local representatives and Straight Talk 92.7 FM, among others. We say here that about the registered landlord, we go into all sorts of detail. And in fact, Mr. Watts has done, in case those of you may forget, he has actually done a podcast on this very issue. 20 minutes, hold on. Criminal eviction, he called it, with Anthony Ricardo, mortgage nightmare with Scotiabank Limited. I'm going to put it in the links just in case you are you care to know a little bit more about this man and how deceptive he can be. So that video of his is in the story. So we represented his position, right? We saw that Scotia had obviously sued him. He has lost not one, but at least 3 cases now against Scotiabank, where the judges have found against him. And we reported on that. The cases are publicly available. So at that point, it was not an issue. It wasn't an issue because in his mind, we were supporting his agenda and we were pushing out there what he wanted to get in the public, and that he had been criminally evicted from his home and Scotiabank had done him something wrong. Now, like I said last week, right? There are people who work Scotiabank who have a very different story to tell you. They can tell you after years of back and forth with this man, the final straw for Scotiabank is when they refinance his house for him yet again. And they said, sir, you've now got to make sure you come in and you pay the mortgage. I don't know how much the mortgage was. I'm sure I can go back in the court documents, but who cares, right? So even if the mortgage was, say, $900, $1,200, whatever it was in his apartment, my man shows up to court with $100. Sorry, shows up to the bank with $100 to pay down on the mortgage. And the bank was like, what do you? Seriously? No, we're not going to do this again. We're not starting all over again. We've just refinanced your mortgage. That means you need to come in now and start paying on time, paying the amount that's due, et cetera, et cetera. And instead you shut with a $100 bill. Scotia had enough. So it is what it is. Let me see some of your comments as we are about to wrap up. Yes, my dear, you guys heard Coco. She was having a good little bark in the background. Olive, trust me, some days I don't even know what to say. Kathy, select a Sandy Hill, big up in the house. Even the devil knows the scriptures. Listen, the truth of the matter is sometimes the devil knows the scriptures more than some Christians, because the devil uses the scriptures to manipulate people and can twist it up and can play mind games with you that at the end of the day, you might sit back and question yourself. Like, wow, maybe this person actually has a point. Well, women and men all over the world are getting sick and tired of the games, of the charades, of the mind games and all that stuff. And I think Miss Lorna has had enough. Elizabeth says, Lorna, maybe God is using you to bring this bad man to the light so he won't hurt anyone else. You are a strong woman. And Lorna, you're well familiar with how he has spoken about his ex-wives, in particular, wife number 2. I don't know what wife number 2 did him, but it seems like he has a real hard on for, well, let me change that. Not a hard on.
Listen.
He has an issue with wife number 2 might be a better term, a more accurate.
Out of all his wives, he spoke about her mean, bitter.
So Shara wants part 3. No, my dear Shara, we are done with this conversation after today. Lorna has signed the divorce papers just to get rid of this man. Darlene wants to know what he's doing with his money. Me not know, my dear child. That's a whole other topic.
And pay people to be on his side.
That's a whole other conversation that we are just not even going there.
Yeah, but another thing, Sandy, didn't he say that I was the one who told you all the things that you posted in the first thing?
Yes, and we know that that's a lie. I can unequivocally say that we had not even spoken to Lorna until into the evening hours, that I think it was the same day, but it was into the evening hours, I think, after people told her that the story was up. They're like, Lord, you made it fun, Cayman, large and in charge.
No, someone sent me the link because they were upset that because they thought that he did it. So they sent me the link and say, have you seen this? Because remember, he has been doing a whole lot of lives talking about me. I ignored him. Everything that he did, I ignored him from December up until the 31st of August. So people are basically saying that I came on here to shame him. That's not what I did, because I was silent for all this time. He was just doing too much, and my kids were getting depressed about it because they're saying, Mommy, you need to say something because he's lying. And why are you're a minister? If you're to go anywhere to preach, they're going to have this over your head. You need to defend yourself.
Yeah, true.
And I have no reason to lie. I have no reason to lie on him because he pushes foot in his own mouth.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't even remember his stories. I was watching his live, and what he did was he screenshot the conversations, and then he photoshopped them to see how far this man will go. So, and I'm saying, why would you do something like this?
Yes. Well, my dear child, I think that's all she wrote. Hopefully the court will just see this as one big hot mess. Stamp those divorce papers for you, and that's it. You're done. That's it. You know?
Yeah.
Mic drop.
Hallelujah.
Bomb drop, and we're out of here. Lorna, thank you so much
for having me.
Yes, we appreciate it. Folks, listen to me. Every single day we wake up and things happen. Lorna, I'm going to pull you out of the stream so you can relax.
Okay, no problem. Have a good one.
Thank you so much. Folks, things happen. Nobody is perfect, as we have seen. And in fact, there are many of us who've been through divorces, bad relationships. They don't end well. And it is what it is, right? The problem becomes, in my mind, when people are deceptive and they try to point the finger at one person and they try to create a particular narrative. So in this case, Mr. Watt was on his platform. He was having the most to say. Just because, Andrew, you may not have seen it, doesn't mean that there were people who did not see it. And like Miss Lorna says, she actually does have a reputation that she believes needs to be defended. And he kept going on and on. He's lied in court documents against the woman. He's accused her of fraud, which, by the way, is a very serious allegation. That is why the court does not take lightly to someone making an application for fraud, and why you have to prove fraud. And in this case, the court said what he was alleging to have transpired was not fraud at all. So here Tracy says that she was surprised. He sent her a long message saying a lot of things, and he asked if she was spying on his wife. I Am Speechless by Michael Jackson. So, I mean, he just goes on and on and on, and it just continues. I mean, honestly, this is why I'm not entertaining him now changing his mind after he's taken counsel from others to come on this show, because there will be no end to this. And Mr. Watts has his own platform. He's done numerous podcasts, numerous live streams, numerous broadcasts, numerous posts, and this could go on for infinity. And that's not what we're here for. There are some lessons. So thank you, Queenie. She says, everyone in life have a 4 o'clock to stick. Lorna, if you was a true child of God, you should have gone through some days of fasting and prayer for intervention. Well, apparently, Queenie, God cannot rise certain things from the dead. He can rise the dead, but not other things. And she had spoken to her pastor. She had sought counsel. And you know what? I don't know why Christians and why church folks believe that you should stay married no matter what. And they want you to stay in abusive relationships because God will deliver you. Well, here's what I know about the God that I believe in. The God that I believe in gives you good old common sense. And your good old common sense says that if someone is beating you, they're mistreating you, they have defrauded you, they have lied to you, they're calling you a whore, calling you a lesbian, which you're not, they're calling your daughter a whore, and all of these things, that is a type of behavior that, number one, is unchristian-like, and number two, you should not subject yourself to. No, God wants you to be, under the auspices of you must submit to this man put under his thumb and treated less than a human being. I don't think that God wants that for anyone. And yes, nobody knows what she has been through. I cannot imagine at the end of the day going to another person's country that you've never been to before and having to leave your husband's home within the first week and go and sleep on somebody else's floor. I cannot imagine saying to my husband, honey, can you get me some, female products at the store, and being told that I must use a paper towel during my menstrual cycle. Folks, really? No amount of praying in the world is going to help that kind of situation. The only thing that the praying would have probably assisted with is for me not to box the man upside the head when he said that, because that is just ridiculous to another level. And that is why I try to stay clear in my more mature age now. I try to steer clear of men, a certain type of men who I can just look at. Lorna talks about the power of discernment. Well, through bad relationships and bad experiences, I can tell you, I have the power of discernment. And I also believe in honesty up front. And one of the first conversations I had with my husband once we started to get serious was like, listen, you have to tell me what your intentions are here, because I am not into any games. If you're looking for something more casual, let me know, because I'm at a particular age now where I need to be thinking about having my child and really settling down and building a future. If you don't know what you want, that's okay. No one is forcing you into anything. You're still a little bit younger. You might still be wanting to test the waters, whatever. Just let me know. Honesty is the foundation of any good relationship. And then you get to see whether or not the two of you are on the exact same page. Have open conversations and open dialogues with people that you are seeing and that you're in a relationship with. There are times that a more casual relationship is fine for the parties involved. That's all you're looking for. You're not looking for anything more serious than that. And it is what it is. But if someone is lying to you and they are deceiving you, then you're going to have a very serious problem. So I feel for both parties in this situation. I think that honestly, Gregory has some issues of his own that he needs to work out. And he's talking about the fact that he has burnt so many bridges here in the Cayman Islands with relationships. He claims it's because, Cayman is too small. What that means when I hear someone say that is, in other words, nobody in the Cayman Islands is going to be fooled by you any longer. They are all sharp to what you have been up to. And so even in the church, you think Cayman is small? Church circles are that much smaller, and people are talking. And people are like, stay away from this man. Okay? People know, unfortunately, his financial woes, that he really doesn't have anything to offer anyone, a woman, in terms of that. And if she's trying to build a future for herself, she's going to have to take on his excess baggage, his bad credit, and knowing that, gosh, no one is even going to finance this man because he's been in all sorts of situations where they're not willing to give him a 6th and 7th chance again. So yes, Cayman is very, very small. And sometimes that works to our advantage, and other times, as Mr. Watt has pointed out, in his case, it's working to his disadvantage. So he's trying to say that it's his choice not to pick anyone in Cayman because Cayman is too small. Maybe it's the opposite. You don't have a choice but to try to go overseas. But even in the world, Jamaica is small too, because everyone has access to information online. So it wasn't long before, people would have started to share information with Miss Lorna. The details are, unfortunately, the marriage just did not even last that long. They didn't even get out the barn. They didn't even get out they're still in the barn. They didn't even get out of the doors of the inside of where you keep this horse in the little room. They didn't even get out that far, much less out the barn. And it is what it is. The marriage is over. It's done for. It's dusted. That's it, folks. That's all she wrote. All parties at this particular time need to move on. I think that would be in everyone's best interest. Ms. Lorna has signed the documents. She has said, enough is enough. I don't really care to engage with this man any further. There are lies in this petition, but you know what? Just sign it, because the ultimate goal is the sooner we get this divorce, the better for all parties involved. And I honestly believe that that is the case as well. So birthday shout outs to everyone who's having a birthday today. Mr. Ricardo is having a birthday. Mr. Ricardo, we thank you for you said you had to change your mind and you wanted to come on the program, but as we've indicated to you, unfortunately, you missed your opportunity. We invited you and you had an open invitation, but we've now had 2 days of this. And I think people are kind of done with this situation. So Heidi Wallace had a birthday over the weekend. David Powery also enjoyed his birthday. Big shout out to Don Smith, Miss Carol Johnson, Renee Miles, Lisa Gould also had a birthday over the weekend. Sharicia, our cousin in Jamaica, Sharicia Sapal, had a birthday as well. And Miss Paula Macfield, who is now 55 years old, she celebrated her birthday yesterday. And I saw some pictures on social media of her birthday party. Big shout out to my good friend, Miss Marguerite Millar. She enjoyed her birthday yesterday as well. Luann Blair also had a birthday yesterday. And Siri, big up Siri from the kitchen, Siri Jones-Russell, also had a birthday yesterday, as well as Angela Ogaro, Eddie Powell, and Queen Gonzalez also had a birthday. So happy birthday, folks, to all of you. We've got a few more birthdays coming up later in the week. So we wish you all a happy and wonderful birthday. Let me just press my little birthday button.
Oh, yo, ho, happy birthday, yo, ho, happy birthday, yo, ho, happy birthday to you.
And Philip says that he makes the church and Christians look bad. I think we're all in agreement with that. These are the kind of shenanigans that we kind of expect to see out and about on the streets, and really not of Christians. But you know what? I guess the saying that the church is for sinners apparently is very, very true. We will continue to pray for them whether we're in the church or not. And yes, Karen, sometimes you just cut your losses and you move on with your life. And I think that's exactly what both parties now have to do. We wish them well. Olive, happy birthday to you as well. Olive's birthday was on Saturday. Yes, we wish both parties well. What can you say? I think the wrong thing now is to continue this discourse and to have people like Lavelle getting in the mix. It just doesn't make any sense. So Tracy says, happy birthday to a friend, Mr. Lynch, who's an electrician. So happy birthday to Mr. Lynch also. Good folks, today is Monday. It is the start of a beautiful, God-filled week for all of us. We will wish nothing but happiness for all of you, good folks. And of course, I want to remind you all, happy birthday to Raquel French as well. Thank you for that, Kayla. Want to remind all of you that we have a lot going on in this country. So thankfully, thus far, the test results which have come back, we had another 600 and something people that results came in for yesterday were all negative. So there are people who are questioning the validity of this positive test. And so we're going to be talking to, some of them a little bit later on about their thoughts on that. There's also some concerns. A parent said yesterday that her child had been, when the school contacted her, this is what she alleged, that when the school contacted her, she apparently was told, they were sorting out a laptop for her year 2 child, but she has a child, another child, a second child that goes to the same school in a different year. And they had not made any preparations for that child. And when she was asking them, the initial person she was talking to was like, oh, well, just, have your child come to school. And she's like, but the whole household is supposed to be in quarantine. The individuals at Red Bay Primary, my apologies, have said the school administrators that that's not true. And essentially they're saying that the parent is being dishonest. The parent stands her ground and has said that there's absolutely no reason for her to be dishonest. So there you have it, another bag of mix-up in that situation. As we speak right now, Prime Minister Boris Johnson is having a live stream event. Breaking news, he's unveiling tough new coronavirus measures. Folks, all I can tell you is that this situation is absolutely out of control all over the world. And in fact, not only is it out of control all over the world, but the UK is having a really tough time. So Britain is going into a lockdown, and that is being aired right now. And the US is continuing to struggle with the coronavirus ahead of their general election, which is coming up here in November. So a lot of people in the US, quite amazingly, have actually supported a president that is not Trump. So for the first time in its 200 plus years of being around, the New England Medical Journal has essentially said that President Trump has handled this situation just disastrously, and the American people should try to elect someone who would do a better job of handling the coronavirus. He has been all over the map with all sorts of different things on the coronavirus. And, he's just come out of it himself. He didn't have a really bad time of it. And he took some experimental treatment, which first he said he would never take because it's stem cells from fetuses or something. And so he actually was against that type of treatment. But now that he claims that it's worked for him, he is calling it a miracle cure, which apparently the medical experts have said is very disingenuous. It's not a cure, and it may have assisted him, but they don't even know if it did because he was taking a cocktail of things. And so for him to single out one treatment, claiming that that was his miracle cure, is really not good. So Ms. Betty Whitaker is reminding us that Mr. Frank Connolly is celebrating his 93rd birthday today. Wow. Mr. Frank Connolly, happy birthday to you, my dear. So good to see you. That you're celebrating 93 years. That is a blessing, trust me. So folks, tomorrow morning, we will continue our conversation on the coronavirus. Of course, there are lots of things happening right here in the Cayman Islands as well. We are thankful that, this alleged first case is not anything worse than it is, because potentially there were children that could have been at risk and could have been exposed. And so, we'll continue to keep an eye on the situation. Remember, folks, we're nowhere near the end of this. We have to be very, very careful. Sue says they continue to let BA flights come here. And in fact, we had 6 positive cases over the weekend on Friday. Yeah. And of the 6, 5 of those were travelers. So they were either self-quarantined or people who were quarantined at a government facility. And one person hospitalized has now been placed on a ventilator because their health has deteriorated. So folks, we have got to continue to watch the situation. We don't need any more people to die. And I agree with Sue and others who have concerns about that BA flight, because honestly, it doesn't matter how long they're here for. There's always the possibility of them coming in contact with people. The staff of BA flight has to overnight here before they jump on the plane and they're able to go back. I think it's coming in every fortnightly, Carol. So I think that's every other week or something. I'll have to double check the schedule. But yeah, as far as I know, the BA flight has not been restricted from coming in as yet. So here's what I'm going to do, folks. I'm going to pull up the live stream for what's it called? For Boris Johnson. Let me see if I can actually bring that up for you guys now so that you can watch what is being said. This looks like their parliament, their House of Parliament. So we can see exactly what is going on. So a few people have it live, including The Guardian. So we'll bring up their feed because we got to know what's going on here, folks. So give me 1 second here.
The Prime Minister told us to be whack-a-mole strategy to control local outbreaks.
So give me 1 second. Yeah, so, their opposition is also claiming that their prime minister has not handled the situation well. It's just a hot mess. It really is a hot mess. But let me pull this up for you. Watch this. Enjoy, folks. Have a productive day. Try to stay safe. Continue to do all the things that we know work. Wash your hands frequently. Stay away from people, especially people that you've not been in contact with. Keep the circle as small as possible. If you have to socialize, no large gatherings, no big parties. That really is the way to go. So be safe, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning, God's willing.
The last few days have fatally eroded public confidence just when we need it most. So can the Prime Minister tell us, what reassurance can he give us that these measures today will be sufficient to get the virus under control? Will he finally accept that trace and isolate should be handed over to local authorities, as we've been saying for months? Will he accept that the support packages announced by the Chancellor simply won't work for many thousands of people, particularly those on the minimum wage? Mr. Speaker, there's huge anger about this in areas under lockdown, and there's a huge gap in the government's plan. And will he confirm that mayors, local leaders, council leaders and others will be fully involved in any future decisions? Finally, I want to say this to the Prime Minister. I know that there will be some on his side who will oppose further restrictions. There will be those that will look at the data and tell him to disregard it, or say the cost of acting now is too high. I want to be clear. The worst thing the Prime Minister can do is not act quickly and decisively enough, or to keep coming back to this House every couple of weeks with a new plan that doesn't work and isn't up to the scale of the task. We need to break that cycle, finally get on top of the virus, rebuild public confidence. I hope the measures announced today will do so, but the House and the country will be deeply sceptical whether they can. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we've had a slight change of tack, in my view, from the right honourable gentleman who has hitherto been willing to support the measures that this government is putting in place to restrict the spread of coronavirus, and we now see an equivocation. He wants it both ways. He said he supported the rule of 6, Mr. Speaker, and then his side refused to vote for it. He said he's unwilling to support the restrictions we placed on hospitality. He continually runs down NHS tests and trace. What he won't say, Mr. Speaker, is what he would do. And what he won't say is exactly how he would propose to get this virus down without those kinds of restrictions. If he supports the Tier 3 measures that City Region have rightly put into place today, then he should say so today. He should have the guts to say so to local leaders across the country, that he supports those measures. He encourages them to go into Tier 3. I think it's a stunning silence that we've heard from the right honourable gentleman. We, by contrast, Mr. Speaker, are working with those local leaders to put in the measures that will protect their populations, protect the NHS, keep our economy moving and drive the virus down. That is our collective endeavour, and I strongly urge him to work out where he stands, to stop flip-flopping from one side to the next, or rather to go back to his previous position, which was support for restrictive measures where necessary to drive the virus down.
Ian Duncan-Smith. Mr. Speaker, can I welcome my right honourable friend's statement and recognise that these are difficult times, and my right honourable friend has to make very difficult and, I hope, balanced choices, balancing the economic damage against the need to save our fellow citizens. But in all of this, there is one positive point that's come out, which is rarely referred to, and that is that the death rate at the moment has fallen from 3% in June to 0.6%, which has to be seen as possibly part of what the government is trying to do. And given that, so the strategy of the government is therefore to drive down the infection rate, quite legitimately, I understand that, while searching for a vaccine. I just simply want to raise, my honourable friend, that others have said, and the scientific advisors have said as well, that there's a lot of talk at the moment about the antivirals, these two antivirals that have now arrived, remdesivir and ivermectin. And given the government's objective, therefore, to drive the infection rate, also underneath that, surely, given the age of death at the moment, averaging 82.4, Shouldn't we now make these antivirals much more widely available at the earliest opportunity through GPs and every other doctor to get them to those people to reduce the likelihood, A, of bringing themselves into hospital and then dying?
And just help with everybody. Can we meet short, punchy answers and questions? It'll help to get through everybody on this. Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, he's of course right that we have better treatments, but alas, the death rate has risen many times over just in the last few weeks, 6 times over just in the last few weeks, and we have no choice under these circumstances, with more people being admitted into hospital every day, to get the virus down.
To Scotland with the leader of the SNP, Ian Blackford. Ian Blackford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over recent weeks, we've all witnessed the worrying trends of infection, the upsurge in hospitalisations, and sadly the increase in death. The danger of the virus is self-evident. We know that we are at a tipping point. So today must be a turning point. A turning point when we must once again act collectively and get back to the absolute priority of suppressing the virus, protecting the NHS and saving lives. So can I ask the Prime Minister, is the policy to bring the R rate below 1 through the highest level interventions being proposed? Mr. Speaker, since the beginning, we've known that mass testing is vital. Any delays in the processing of tests slow the start of contact tracing. Can the Prime Minister advise what proportion of tests in the last 7 days took longer than 48 hours to process? And what steps are being taken to ensure there is no backlog in processing from the Lighthouse labs? Mr. Speaker, if today is to be a turning point, then the UK government needs to carry out another U-turn on financial support for workers. It is blindingly and blatantly unfair. Just as health restrictions are being strengthened, economic support is being weakened. The Chancellor needs to finally wake up to that logic. No more last-minute half-baked economic announcements. Even Tory-backed Bennett in the North of England are calling for furlough to be maintained at 80% of wage support. Will the Prime Minister give some certainty and security to businesses and workers? Will he finally instruct his Chancellor to extend the full furlough scheme beyond October? Businesses and workers must not pay the price for managing the lockdown with closures and unemployment when their businesses would be viable post these special measures. Can the Prime Minister also confirm that devolved administrations will be able to trigger the financial support directly without requiring approval from the UK government when they choose to an area under restrictions to help reduce the spread of the virus? And finally, on universal credit and support for the most vulnerable. Mr. Speaker, last Wednesday, Prime Minister's question, the Prime Minister suggested I ask him again on his government's plan to maintain the lifeline of the uplift in universal credit support. So now that he has had another week to consider it, will he do the right thing and make the £20 universal credit uplift permanent?
Thank you. Well, Mr. Speaker, on NHS test and trace capacity has massively increased, and as he knows, to 312,000. He asked what steps we're taking. We're introducing new testing sites. I think 500 new testing sites. We're introducing more labs for testing, and he asked also about what we can do to get the virus down, the measures that we're taking, Mr. Speaker. And he's completely right that it depends on enforcement, it depends on testing and tracing, Mr. Speaker. But it also depends on each and every one of us following the guidance, working together to get the virus down, and that is what I hope that he will encourage everyone to do. On the excellent point that he raises about support for businesses that are going to be affected by the latest measures, I would just stress that the Chancellor's latest job support scheme at 67% is highly competitive with all other European countries, indeed more generous than many, and we will continue to put our arms around every worker and every business in this country to the best of the ability of this country. And on his specific point about universal credit, the uplift will remain present for the rest of this financial year, Mr. Speaker.
Just help the House. I'm going to finish this at 5:50, so let's help each other. Jeremy Hunt.
Mr. Speaker, this morning it was announced that the routine testing of asymptomatic NHS staff in hotspot areas would start. This has been long advocated by the Select Committee, and I want to thank the Prime Minister for progress in this area. We all want to avoid a second national lockdown, which would be devastating for jobs. Does my right honourable friend agree that the evidence from China, Korea and Italy is that the best way to avoid this is earlier, decisive, localised interventions, however difficult, however unpalatable, and that today's difficult decision is not therefore about a trade-off between jobs and health, but ultimately the best way to secure both?
Well, my right honourable friend is absolutely right in what he says, and I know that local leaders across the country will listen to him, and I hope that they will accept our offer and go into Tier 3 where necessary.
Ed Davey.
The government has asked a lot from people during this pandemic. Stay at home, close your business, don't be there at the death of a loved one. The British people have borne such sacrifice with grace and resilience. All they ask in return from government is clear communication and basic competence. Yet it seems, Mr. Speaker, their sacrifices have been squandered by the government's failure to build a robust test, trace and isolate system, or even communicate competently. So can the Prime Minister promise that the new sacrifices he's asking from people today will not be squandered this time?
Well, Mr. Speaker, of course we're working hard with colleagues across the House to get our messages across, and I'm grateful to him for the support he has felt able to give for the measures that we've outlined. I do believe that they can be very effective if they're delivered jointly with local authorities, with local support. And that's what we're working for. And I hope that he will join us in that effort.
Kate Griffiths.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know pubs across Burton and Uttoxeter will appreciate the support available to them through the Jobs Support Scheme in the event of a local lockdown. But will my right honourable friend consider the impact on breweries, for example, which won't be eligible for the support but will have no pubs to be able to sell to?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I understand the point that she makes, and we will have, of course, the regular job support scheme available to businesses that are open but not able to trade in the way that they would want to.
So Geoffrey Donaldson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We must, of course, do all we can to ensure that the NHS is able to cope with the current situation. But I agree with the Prime Minister that a localised approach is the right approach, whilst keeping schools and businesses open. But in terms of support for those who have so far not received that support, will the Prime Minister commit to putting his arms around those people who have not yet benefited from the various schemes that have been brought forward by the government?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we always do what we can to improve the welfare system and those who aren't benefiting. But I would just remind the House that the self-employed, which is a group that I think we all care about very much, have received so far £13.5 billion of support, and will continue to look after them as well.
Davis.
One of the many reasons the Prime Minister has proved himself such a formidable and popular politician over so many years has been his resolute belief in the common sense of the British people. Therefore, instead of a constant blizzard of arbitrary rules which will only serve to collapse the economy and destroy businesses and jobs, will he instead remind people what's important: social distancing, washing hands, the groups who are most at risk, the elderly, people with health conditions, etc., and once again put his trust in the British people to act responsibly? After all, believing that individuals make better decisions for themselves, their families and their communities than the state can make for them is surely at the heart of what it means to be a Conservative.
Well, Mr. Speaker, he is exactly right, and the best decision that individuals can make for themselves, for their families and for communities is to follow the guidance: wash your hands, face, space, protect the NHS and save lives.
People from Conway, with 122 cases per 100,000, are not permitted by Welsh law to make non-essential journeys into Meirionydd next door, where cases stand at 18 per 100,000. But people in Liverpool, with almost 1,600 cases per 100,000, can still go on holiday and go nothing in this morning. People in Wales are asking the Prime Minister, how is this fair?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the guidance is very clear that people from very high areas, such as Merseyside, should not be making those journeys.
Is my right honourable friend aware that in Essex, though the case rate remains relatively low, we have cases doubling every 10 days? And isn't it better to bring in decisive measures which would be effective at suppressing the curve before it climbs, rather than waiting until after it climbs, provided the measures are effective and provided there's economic support, particularly for the hospitality sector?
My right honourable friend is completely right, and that's why we're bringing in the package that we are today.
You, Mr. Speaker, so today we seem to have a partial admission of the failure of the government's outsourced test and trace system, when so many of us have argued for so long that it should be in the hands of public local health teams. Does he regret handing billions over to the private sector who have failed so spectacularly? And will he now give it back to local public health teams who know their communities best, so that they can do that in all areas, not just the very high areas? And one final thing, Prime Minister, will he stop saying that he has put his arms around the self-employed, because over 3 million of them have had no support since March?
Well, Mr. Speaker, on her substantive, I repeat the point we've made about the self-employed. 13.5 billion have been given to support them, and where there's more that we can do, we will obviously look at it. She makes an interesting point about whether a local approach would have been better throughout this than a national approach. All the evidence is that you need both. And that's what we've supplied, and that's what we will continue to supply. And that's why we're expanding our support for the local approach, because all the experience of other countries shows you need a national approach, because otherwise the local test and trace operations simply do not join up, Mr. Speaker. And there are plenty of other countries where they've had that experience. And that's why we're going down an approach that joins up local test and trace with national test and trace as well.
What does he make of the special envoy's statement that we at the World Health Organization do not advocate lockdowns as the primary means of control for this virus?
I totally agree with what David Nabarro had to say. I think he's completely right. And I think that the best way of controlling this virus is commonsensical restrictions on person-to-person contact, because it's that person-to-person contact that spreads the virus, and that's what we all need to do.
Heading to North Down with Stephen Farry. Stephen Farry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Northern Ireland is suffering from some of the worst COVID figures in the UK. Can the Prime Minister follow through on his commitment to give the Northern Ireland Executive the financial firepower so it can follow the science and do what is necessary to address a deteriorating situation, and to give businesses the support to do what's necessary?
Of course, Mr. Speaker, and the Northern Ireland businesses in Northern Ireland will receive exactly the same support, and on the basis of Barnett consequentials. That's inevitable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the Prime Minister's commitment to work on a local level, and I hope he'll understand my disappointment that Wolverhampton has been lumped into a Tier 2 system, despite the protestations of all 3 MPs and the local council. My fantastic pubs and restaurants have done everything asked of them, and now, because they're in Tier 2, they face no financial support at all and a devastating effect on their viability. Can he urgently look?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to my honourable friend, but actually the job support scheme is precisely available to pubs, restaurants, businesses in her constituency that are not able to trade that may be open but are not able to trade as they normally would.
Let's head up to Merseyside with Sir George Howard. Sir George.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister is aware that if we are to tackle these horrendous rises in COVID-19 in the Liverpool City region, we need a much more effective track, trace and isolate system, but we haven't got one yet. Will he accept my suggestion that we establish a Liverpool City region test, trace and isolate task force, including the NHS, local authorities, the Metro Mayor and other stakeholders, to report by the end of this week with suggestions as to how the unused NHS capacity that exists could be used more effectively so that we have a proper test, trace and isolate system in place.
Yes. Well, I'm grateful to the right honourable gentleman. I can tell him that we're already working with the Liverpool City region on improving local test and trace, and I think his suggestion is very apposite, and I'm sure is one that will be taken forward in the course of those conversations.
Mr. Speaker, we're seeing a very unwelcome trend from the party opposite that backs the government's sensible measures one week only to flip-flop and change their mind the next week. Does my right honourable friend agree with me and several constituents from Derbyshire Dales who have said that what they want to see is this House working together for sensible policies rather than political point scoring?
Yes, indeed, Mr. Speaker. And I think what the people of this country want to see is unanimous support for measures that restrict the spread of the virus, and we've had that. We've had that before. I hope that we'll have it again. And what I hope is that members opposite who are calling on me to do more in Greater Manchester will prevail on the authorities in Greater Manchester to come into to Tier 3 and to help us to get there.
Mr. Speaker, tragically, one of the few certainties about this second wave is that economic hardship will rise. So why will the Prime Minister neither review the level of statutory sick pay, which even the Health Secretary said he couldn't afford to live on, or crucially extend the holiday hunger food voucher programme to cover half-term and Christmas holidays?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as he knows, we've given substantial sums to support meals for kids in need of free school meals in these difficult times, £380 million already. And we will continue through universal credit and other support to support families across this country throughout this crisis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I warmly welcome my right honourable friend's collaborative approach with local government and with the mayors. But will he bear in mind that we have unity among the politicians and the public health experts across the West Midlands under our skillful and much respected Mayor Andy Street in support of the current levels of restrictions, because they do appear to be working. The medical evidence and political consensus suggests leaving the West Midlands at level 1 with the additional local restrictions.
Alas, the virus continues to rise across the country, not uniformly, but the judgments that we have made are ones that we're sticking to.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the record, as you were well aware, Mr. Speaker, Halton is in Cheshire, although it's a member of the Liverpool City Regional Authority, it's actually in Cheshire. So can I ask the Prime Minister this? He or his ministers announced new measures, new restrictions on the 14th, the 22nd and the 24th of September, and as recently as the 3rd of October, either national or local, which impacted upon my constituency. Isn't this an example of how the government is shifting from one restriction to the next without any real proper plan to deal with this? So can I ask the Prime Minister one specific question about my constituency? Halton has a low rate of infection than a number of other areas that are not in the highest restriction rate. So can I ask him, why is Halton in the highest restriction rate and others are not?
Mr. Speaker, of course, this government is obliged to adapt its plans to combat the virus as the epidemic changes shape and changes course. But our objective remains unchanged, which is to get the R down in his constituency and elsewhere, whilst keeping education open and keeping our economy going. And that's something I think on which both sides of this House are united.
Speaker, the Prime Minister has said there will be a 4-week sunset for areas in the highest restrictions. What reassurance can he give to areas in tiers 1 and 2, some of which have had additional restrictions already for 2.5 months, that this isn't going to become a permanent state?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we keep all these things under constant review, and nothing could be more attractive to the government than moving the whole country out of the present restrictions that we're in as fast as possible. That requires us all to follow the guidance.
Heading up to Scotland with Drew Hendry. Drew Hendry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister has just said he wants to put his arms around every worker in the country. That'll sound pretty hollow to those people left alone and abandoned, those who've been excluded from any COVID support from his government. They now face a £20 a week reduction in their universal credit. So can you answer the question I'm asked by my increasingly desperate constituents every day? How are they to pay their bills?
Mr. Speaker, don't forget, I'm grateful on round, but this government has increased universal credit by about £7 billion, perhaps £9 billion, £1,000 a year, and the uplift will remain in place for this financial year, as I told the House earlier on.
By when does my right honourable friend expect to have vaccinated the vulnerable population? What is his confidence in that date, and why does he have that confidence?
I'm grateful to my right honourable friend. Alas, I can't give him a date by which I can promise confidently that we will have a vaccine. There are some very hopeful signs, not least from the Oxford AstraZeneca trials that are being conducted. But as he knows, SARS was discovered, took place 18 years ago. We still don't have a vaccine for SARS. I don't wish to depress him, but we must be realistic about this. There's a good chance of a vaccine, but it cannot be taken for granted.
Don Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Prime Minister, sorry, Mr. Speaker. How dare I? My apologies. Prime Minister, instead of supporting established system in public health, you've invested £10 billion in privatised companies. It hasn't controlled the virus, it hasn't saved lives, and it hasn't rebuilt the economy. In Brent, wonderful CEO Caroline Downs, with the leader of the council, Mo Butt, had control of local testing. We were able to test people very quickly and surrounding areas. Now the government has taken the majority of the testing away. People are told they have to travel miles to get tested. And in addition, care workers have waited 7 days to get their test results. When will the Prime Minister stop his obsession with a centralised approach and go for a decentralised approach that works?
I understand the point that she makes, and obviously, I'm sorry for the bad experiences that some people have had with excessive turnaround times for NHS test and trace and so on. But I do think that the mixed approach that we're taking is the right one. You need a joined up national test and trace system combined with the work of local authorities, and that's what we're delivering.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the Prime Minister for his statement and for the tireless work he's putting in to tackle this wretched virus. A number of constituents running hospitality businesses have contacted me, like Cheryl, who runs a station in Bishop Auckland, and she's particularly concerned about the lack of households being able to meet within her pub. So can the Prime Minister reassure Cheryl that we will look at lifting those local restrictions as soon as feasibly possible, and we'll also look at taking every step possible to provide additional financial support for those in Tier 2 lockdowns, please?
Of course, Mr. Speaker, and in addition to providing support for hospitality pubs in Bishop Auckland through the JSS that I've mentioned already, there's the business rate cut that she's familiar with, the grants that I've announced today. But the best thing, as she rightly says, is to get the virus under control so that we can lift these restrictions altogether. That's what we want to do.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Speaker. We all know that rising infections will mean more restrictions, but worried staff in viable businesses in Leeds want to know that they will be looked after if they are forced to close in future. Now, I presume the Prime Minister can give the House assurance that the Council will be consulted before that happened. But for someone on the minimum wage who would lose a third of their income in those circumstances, and by the way, the French and German schemes are more generous than those applying here, can the Prime Minister assure my constituents that they will not, under any circumstances, be evicted from their homes because they could not afford to pay the rent?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I must respectfully take issue with his characterisation of the scheme, which remains internationally competitive. In France, it's 60% for some, 70% for others. In Germany, it's about the same. In Italy, they have an 80% provision, but a serious cap. In Ireland, it's down, or a very low cap.